Good evening. Thank you for attending the Town of Amherst Traffic and Safety Board meeting. Today is Wednesday, May 7th. I would like to introduce the members of the board. My name is Cynthia Selden. I'm the vice chair. And I'll let the other members and the liaisons to the town departments introduce themselves. I'm going to start on the end and go down here. So, Councilmember Zakala.
Hello, everyone. I'm Councilman Zuccalla, and I am liaison to the Amherst Traffic Safety Board.
Patricia Dunn, member.
Nick Alterio, member.
Kevin Cantwell, board member.
Kara Biddlecombe, board member.
Building Department. Charles Persons, Police Department.
Chris Schregel, Engineering Department, Traffic Safety Coordinator. And it looks like Scott just stepped out, right? Scott Marshall is also present from the Planning Department.
Thank you. And I should, there's a couple pieces of business we have to take care of before we start the meeting. One is to let you know about the emergency exits. Should an alarm go off during the meeting, the two exits are over to your right, my left, over there. And you would just go down the back stairs or out the front door. Please don't use an elevator if the alarm is sounding. Thank you. And I need to let you know that as of now, we don't have a quorum. So we cannot at this time vote on anything that we discuss, but we are expecting another member to arrive, hopefully within the next half hour, 45 minutes. So we would be able to vote. Once he gets here, we will have a sufficient quorum. And there's just a few things before we start to that I need to let you know about. First order of business is we have to review our minutes. Does anybody have any additions or changes to the last meeting's minutes? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. And we can't vote to approve those minutes because, again, we don't have a quorum. So we'll just set that aside and vote on them once the chairman gets here. Moving on to tonight's agenda, I'm going to go over a few ground rules. Just so you know, this board does not have lawmaking authority. Members of the board are volunteers appointed by the town board members, serving in an advisory capacity to the town of Amherst. The liaisons are here to support and advise the board and to have their respective departments act on any recommendations that we make and that do not require legal action. Anything that requires legal action, we give that information to Councilmember Zakala, and he takes it to the town board for their approval. As we close each agenda item, we will provide you with information regarding the next steps. Also, in order to address the concerns of the room, we do not go through the agenda items in order. We will go through items based on the order of sign-in sheet for new and old business items. If you're here for site plans, they always are done at the end of the meeting. Residents will have a chance to speak for 3 minutes for public expression. We have information that you provided, so there's no need to repeat yourself. And if you have any questions to ask us, you do it during the time that you speak. After you're done, you cannot ask the board any questions. When you speak, you'll get, at 2.5 minutes, you'll hear one ring of the bell to give you a warning sign to kind of wrap it up. And then you'll have another 30 seconds. And then obviously you can finish the sentence that you're in. And also, I want to address a few topics that will come up during the public comment period. Hopefully this will help you as you address the board and help you understand the actions that this board can take. The town of Amherst standard speed limit is 30 miles an hour. The town of Amherst has not posted any roads under 30 except for in school zones as allowed. The village of Williamsville does not allow for lower speeds. It will require a legal action by the town board for this board to post a speed limit under 30, so we just can't do that. And stop signs are to control traffic at an intersection. They're not to control speed. So a lot of times people come forward and want us to control speed, but a stop sign, according to the manual that we have to use, the MUTCD manual, which is a state manual that to be met for a stop sign, it's not to control speed, as I've said. And as far as speed bumps, as of now, the town of Amherst does not put in speed bumps. The fire department, the police department, and the highway department oppose that. So at this time, they're not installing speed bumps. With that, we will start the first item on the agenda, which a couple people have signed in for item number 6. If you signed in for that, you may, one at a time, come up and,
First item introduction, Cynthia? No problem.
I'm sorry, this is my first meeting running, so be patient with me. I'm going to turn the introduction of the first agenda item over to Chris from the engineer department.
So thank you, Vice Chairman. Cynthia, where number 6 is being discussed first, it was brought forth by a resident who, let's see, we're on Spruce and Buckeye, right? This is Spruce and Buckeye, correct? Item 6?
Yep.
Thank you. Was brought forth by a resident within the Spruce and Buckeye neighborhood, and the concern was related to on-street parking on Spruce. This area just south of Sheridan Drive in Eggertsville is already heavily signed with no parking as displayed on the screen. There's currently no parking on the east side of Buckeye, and that transitions to a no parking 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday on the east side. And then you'll see that same restriction on the west side of Buckeye between Sheridan and Spruce. And then that turns into a no parking between Monday and Saturday. I don't have a good understanding of how those times and locations were set by the town years and years ago. But now before you today is that people in this neighborhood are now parking on Spruce. Obviously, that has no parking restrictions. And apparently there are some Airbnbs in that neighborhood that generate a good amount of parking that overflows onto the street. And therefore, the resident is requesting a no parking for some distance at the corner to clear it up for safety reasons, as it is choked down and it can become an issue with drivers pulling in and out. With that, I'll turn it over. Well, one more thing. We did do a crash review for the past 3 years. There have been no reported crashes at that intersection. With that, I will turn it back over to the board.
Thank you. So the first member of the public that did sign in was Phyllis Binchesk. I apologize if I messed up your name. You can come to the podium. Okay.
Picture. Understand there's been no crashes, but we have 3 cars right here that are parked right to the corner. When you're going down Spruce to turn onto Buckeye, or if they're coming from Sheridan onto Buckeye, they come like crazy people. It's very easy to get hit there because you can't see anything. These 3 cars belong to the one house. They have a driveway for 4 cars. They park there because they use their front door. So they're right on the corner. We also have an R&B where they park up on the grass and everywhere else by that house because they over-peopleize it. They have room for like 20 people, so you can imagine the cars they have for Bills games and everything else. It's very hard to see. And if you have a car parked on this side and this side of Spruce, it's a small road. You know, there's no way to see at all. No, I understand there's no crashes. Thank God there isn't so far.
Thank you very much. The next person that signed in was Rosemary? Oh, that was you? Okay.
Here's the picture, board. So are you asking for a parking restriction on both sides? Do you have a preferred distance or number of cars?
Kids on Spruce Road, man, they can't play outside because they can't see anything. The cars parked up and down the street. Now, they did that at Buckeyes. I didn't see it very. They did that on Buckeyes. A long time ago, when all this was great parked on Buckeyes. So people complained because they couldn't see the Buckeyes.
Buckeye's stop controlled, right, at the, Buckeye, I mean, Spruce is stop controlled at Buckeye? Is there a stop sign there?
Yes, there's.
Yep, there it is, there's a stop sign. What is the road width? That road looks mighty thin.
So roadway width,
Yeah, it looks like it's thinner than it should be.
uncurbed. $34.
What's the standard?
Standard's 28 feet wide. This is 34 feet wide.
So actually it's wider,
I'm sorry, I didn't ask, was there anyone else that had public comment on this subject?
That house specifically that they're parked at is a rental, and mainly it's the UB students that come and go, and that's those 3 cars that are there all the time. And they don't use the driveway because they use the front door. And many people in the neighborhood have stated that they, had a problem getting around the corner, especially now that red van is mine, which I now park in the yard. But that was the problem with them 3 on the left side there. But sometimes other people park on my side of the street also.
Does anybody use the driveway?
Yeah, most people use the driveway.
I mean, of those renters, the house that the renters are at, does anybody use the driveway?
And actually, in the winter, one of them got a ticket, but he still continued to park on the street. They don't have a back door, I'm guessing, so that's why they park on the street, because they go in and out the front door.
Can you use the microphone?
Sorry.
That's right, pull it down.
Okay, sorry.
No sidewalks.
But, again, now sometimes these students leave in May, and then he gets a new group in August when school starts again. But this specific group doesn't use the driveway, just parked on the street there.
And what's the deal with the Airbnb? There's an Airbnb here?
That's up on Buckeye, behind the restaurant, the Fafalel, I think it's called. He's quite popular. He gets a lot of people in that Airbnb. It's right behind the plaza. It's the house behind the plaza. I'm guessing that's the one, yeah. And over the weekend, they're actually parking on the lawn. Some of the times they're on the street. The main issue, though, is Spruce with those 3 cars.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else that didn't speak that wanted to comment on this? If not, I have to close the public comment section on this agenda.
She's right. There is a fire hydrant there.
parked
Okay. Yeah, you guys should discuss what you'd like to put up, and then we're just talking about public notification at this point. Normally, before the board makes a recommendation, they like to notify the adjacent property owners that are affected. In this situation, the adjacent property owners were not notified of this meeting. In a lot of circumstances, this board comes up with a recommendation, then we go out to the adjacent residents and hold the item, and then weigh in on it at the next meeting. But you should, if you're leaning towards a recommendation, you should try to reach that now.
So is public commentary closed at this time?
So here, there's a no parking section on the segment of Buckeye Road between Spruce and Beach Road. Is that no parking from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m.? Does that extend for the entire segment?
No, I believe it stops at Beach.
Where does the no parking stop exactly? Because these cars that the picture was shown of, they might be in the no parking zone already.
They're on Spruce, that no parking is Buckeye. They're all parked in front of that house in Spruce.
The cars are parked on Spruce, okay, and we need the no parking on Spruce.
What gets me is they got a perfectly good driveway. And if they put their cars there, there'd be no problem. But they don't want to because they got to walk an extra 100 feet. Isn't the standard for a stop sign 40 feet or is it 30 feet?
At 30, Captain?
Parking from here to stop sign 30 or 40 feet?
Yeah. So, yeah,
30.
per the V&T, you're not allowed to park, we think, between 30 feet in front of a stop sign, but it's only specific to that side. They're having an issue on the other side, so it wouldn't apply to the north side. It's not 15, it's, that's incorrect. It's either 25 or 30. I get them confused because one's from a stop bar and one's from a stop sign.
Even so, it's the wrong side of the street. Well, the thing is, what gets me is, okay, so suppose we do no parking there. So those three cars, whatever three students they are, they're just gonna park further down the street. Or they're gonna park in the driveway. How far down Spruce do we go with no parking?
Well, I think the intent is to try to clear up that intersection. You know, it's safest when there's vehicles out of that functional area of that intersection. If you start squeezing it further down Spruce, it's not as much of a safety issue.
And they're still gonna have to walk their 100 feet anyway, so then they'll just start parking in the driveway.
Well, we can make a recommendation. But yeah, you would have to come back and vote on it. But you can make the recommendation and then invite the adjacent property owners and then hold the item. But if you're leaning towards a recommendation, you got to specify what sides, what hours, and the length.
Do those cars clear, they're students, the cars clear out like during the day when they're off to classes and they're back in the evening? They come and go? Oh, it's even worse.
The main thing is the corner. Trying to get out and come in.
I wonder if they'd be more inclined to walk, if there was actually a sidewalk, to walk from the driveway to the front of their house.
I propose that we consider putting no parking for that stretch at the corner to allow clearing up the intersection. You know, whether that's 15 feet or something like that, but still allows enough space to park because there's also no other parking on Buckeye that they could alternatively move to. It's just going to keep moving things further down Spruce, which could create different issues. But that would be my proposal. So no parking here to corner anytime. Yeah.
And I would think,
I agree with that.
I would suggest expanding that to go to the south side as well, because even though we all know there's no parking at 30 feet to the stop, 30 or 40 or 50 feet to the stop sign, it would reinforce it if we put the sign there ahead of time, because they're just gonna go to the other side then. So I think we put signs on both sides of the street, whatever, 30 or 40 feet from, no parking from here to corner at the standard distance, whether it's 30, 40, or 50, Captain Persons is looking it up. Yeah, but I mean, it would clear the intersection, it would open up lines of sight and remove the hazard, which is what we're looking for here. Are you gonna move it? Are you gonna make a motion?
Well,
We can't make a motion.
We make a recommendation.
We have
then
to
make a motion.
hold it till
Yes.
find the neighbors.
Yeah.
So we can hold.
Okay.
We will vote on that when
Yeah,
the
so
chairman
we'll-
gets here. But that will be our action.
Okay, got it.
Okay, that's,
Okay, the next item on the agenda is item number 3, which is, which Chris will do an introduction of.
All right, this next item is just specific to traffic being generated by a mosque on Heim Road, where a resident of Mont Bleu brought to the town's attention that, especially during prayer on Fridays, there are cars parked illegally in front of hydrants, in front of driveways, obstructing sidewalks, going in the wrong direction. It can be dangerous because it forces vehicles to be narrowed and can impede emergency vehicles as well as deliveries. And they are looking for a solution. This Traffic Safety Board has reviewed this item in the past and has made a slew of recommendations specific to no parking. In some instances, actually in most instances, let me pull up the restrictions. They are during that prayer hour on Fridays from 11 to 5. So currently, Heim Road is restricted from South Wedge to Mont Bleu on the west side, and then a portion of Mont Bleu is similarly restricted between the hours of 11 and 5 on Fridays. And then Fair Woods was looked at. There was a number of parking restrictions recommended on Fairwoods, but only the 30 feet to corner was implemented, aside from adjacent to an island in the middle there, shown off screen. And other discussions with the mosque indicated that they were looking at a plan to expand parking. That was in 2023. As such, we've invited the mosque here today to speak on the matter. And with that, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Okay, I'm going to open up the floor for public comment. Several people have signed up for it. The first one was Emmanuel Stenhockler. And again, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing anyone's name. Sorry.
So we were here in 2023 when the mosque was trying to get permits for that parking. We don't have a problem with the mosque whatsoever. The issue is the safety issue with that intersection. If you go back to it where the no parking is, really our biggest issue is Amherst PD not enforcing the laws that are already on the books. We've called numerous times. Sometimes they come out. My wife actually talked to the police chief because that was what was recommended, and he told us that we needed to come to the board. So we constantly call them every time that there's parking issues. They will still park in the no parking. They park right to the intersection. Last time I talked to an officer, he wasn't even sure that there was a penal code for them not parking that close to the intersection. Then he talked to a senior officer who then told us 15 feet. So it's a big issue. You have school buses coming through there because I think the mosque, their mass is 1:30 to 2:30. And you have school buses coming in there, and we have videos of the school buses not being able to get through. We've had issues with fire departments not being able to get through. One of our neighbors had a power box catch on fire, so they had issues getting in with the fire truck. They had to call Amherst PD because they couldn't get through. We have several elderly neighbors in our neighborhood that if there's a medical emergency and an ambulance is not getting through, during Ramadan, it took me over 30 minutes to get a small section, which was a one-way, because when they park, that road is so narrow that you can only get one car through there. So it's been an ongoing issue, and the parking is not being enforced. And I guarantee you they're parking way closer than that on Heim Road to that intersection to Fairwoods. And they are parking all the way down to the next road that's passed all the way down here on the non-marked side. So it gets pretty problematic on Heim Road as well as our road as well as Fairview. We got several other people to speak on it too.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next person that signed up was Carolina Stenbecker.
I brought the agenda up, and I know you guys want us to come up with solutions. I know during Eid and Ramadan, which are our high holy days, one of the solutions, since it is when schools are out of session, their evening prayers, is possibly having the mosque make arrangements with North High School or High Middle Elementary campus and shuttle from their parking lots to them. And on Ramadan, which they usually celebrate as a whole community on the weekend, to also have that. We do it for Heim Middle and Heim Elementary when they have the craft fair, putting up the paper no parking signs during that time frame. So I don't see why we can't do it specifically the weekend of Eid. Ramadan, their prayers are in the evening, so it's not a big deal, but Eid was a huge deal, and every Friday it's getting worse and worse. As a neighborhood, we all go out and we'll tell them, you can't park here, there's no parking signs. We get blown off. This last Ramadan, when they had their celebration, people were parked at the fire hydrants. We tried to tell them. Amherst PD did come out, and it was so bad that the cop actually had to park in our driveway because there was no parking for him to safely navigate our neighborhood. We've already had, like my husband said, the fire trucks, delivery trucks, school buses can't get up and down our street. It's taken us a long time to get up the street. The mosque, we've gone to the security because the mosque does have security there. When they have their prayer services to guide the movement of traffic. And we've said to them, can you say something? And they do say stuff to their community, but it's still not doing anything. So these signs, even though that was the fix we had recommended and you guys went with it and the mosque agreed with it, they're not being enforced by anyone. So that's where we are right now. Plus, you guys have already looked, the bike path is there, and you guys have looked to make that bike path paved and to have people cross there. So that's going to be another issue coming up if this problem isn't resolved. The peanut line, that was brought up, and I was at that meeting where you guys looked at it to bring that peanut line through there. You safely can't do that. There's been vehicle accidents. There's some vehicle accidents reported, and some Amherst PD has not shown up because we've called Amherst when there's been vehicle accidents, and they haven't been able to show up. Officers come if they're available, but sometimes they don't. So we're stuck kind of in between this hard place. I know if a business were to build in a community, you wouldn't let that business park in the residential area. Because I've been here when you guys told Enterprise they couldn't use neighborhood parking for their overflow lot. It's not fair that we're allowing our neighborhood become the overflow lot for something that we know is an ongoing issue.
Okay, the next person that signed up was Gina Corella.
Hi. So just to kind of echo what Carolina and Emmanuel had already said, I was actually a resident. I'm on Mont Blue, and I have a police report of when the tree was on fire in my backyard and the fire truck couldn't get through, and the police officer had to ticket at least 6 vehicles that were parked illegally. And he has a comment on here that those returning to their vehicles were irate that parking tickets were being issued. That happened a few years back after the no parking signs were put up. Now the signs do say no parking on Fridays between 11 and 5. They're violating that. There were 11 cars parked illegally last Friday from my neighbor's house to the corner. Parking around the corners makes it impossible to turn right or left onto Heim from Mont Blue or from Fairwoods. Our suggestion is maybe no parking anytime 75 feet from any corner on Heim coming up, and Mont Blue and Fairwoods, to make a clearing so that buses can make a turn, a fire truck can make the turn. It's impossible to see and it's dangerous. My kids can't even back out of my driveway at 2 o'clock on a Friday because there's cars parked so close to my driveway and across from my driveway. If there's a car coming, you're literally gridlocked. You cannot go anywhere. I also asked from the town, and I could submit this, the car accidents that have been reported over the last 3 years, only on Fridays between 12 and 3 o'clock. And I believe there were 8, and that is just what's reported. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but that's a very specific time of day to have accidents every few months. So I'm happy to submit that for you. And that's it.
Thank you. The next person that signed up was Michelle Corella.
First of all, I just want to thank everybody for volunteering your time to help our community, which is why we're all here, to ensure the safety of our community and support our community. I'm the newest member to the Mont Blue community. I live right on the very corner house of Mont Blue and Heim. So I'm right on that corner. Yep, that's me. That's my car. So I also wanted to share that as a community, we created a file and uploaded all the videos, not all, but most of the videos and some of the photographs that we have of these parking violations. I'm sure there's well over 100 of them just documented. I do have a QR code that I brought to pass out if you guys would like to have a copy. No? Yes? QR code. So being the newest member of the community, I first want to say I wanted to live on Mont Blue. That's my brother and my sister-in-law, and the Steenbachers have become very good friends of mine, even prior to moving into the community. And knowing and loving it and seeing the families in there, I was fortunate enough to be able to get into that community December of 23. But shortly, once I moved in, I realized, wow, this is a major problem, not being able to get in and out, especially being on the corner. There are parking signs on Friday, but they're completely disregarded. There is no regard. My concern for our community is there's just no regard for our community, our safety, what is going on, 15 feet, 30 feet, whatever. They're parked right in front of the stop sign. They're parked right on corners. On Eid, I had several people use my driveway as a, like a wait, like they were waiting to pick up their people, and just like pulled right in, you know, and just sat there for, you can see one of the videos, the car's there for 8 minutes, waiting for somebody to come. That's my home. I have children there. I have small children. That's a corner. There is so many dangerous things that could potentially happen and have happened. And it really is just a matter of time before, you know, we have an elderly woman that lives in the circle and, you know, ambulances have come frequently. What if there's an event where the cars can't get down there and at that moment the time isn't on her side? So I'm asking for all of the community, the Amherst Board, the Amherst Town Police, and the mosque to please come together and try to find a solution in where our community can feel safe again, as well as respected. Because again, there is just a blatant disregard for our safety, our concerns, and the parking signs. That's it.
Thank you. And another person that signed up was Amjad Arif.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amjad Arif. I live on 283 Sagewood in Williamsville. I'm the president of the Islamic Society of Niagara Frontier. I am truly sorry for all the things that the neighbors just mentioned. I would tell you that we, in every prayer, in every congregation, we announce specifically about parking. You should not park on the signs that says no parking. Now this, after that, becomes an issue of enforcement. In fact, there several times I asked the security to contact Amherst police to come and enforce the signs that people park on the other side of Heim. Unfortunately, we keep saying, but we don't have any enforcement from the podium telling people move your car. In regard to parking, that was mentioned earlier, we added 50 parking spots to our facility. So the idea is to accommodate more cars into the campus. But again, people sometimes don't follow directions. And I kindly ask for the QR code because I want to display it in the masjid and tell them this is not acceptable. We'd like to be good neighbors. And being a good neighbor, we want everybody to follow the law. And if there's no sign for allowance for parking, they shouldn't park. So I would like to work with neighbors, with the board, to help us solve that problem. The idea that was mentioned earlier, shuttling the attendees from Heim Middle School or North High School, we did that in the past. And if Eid comes on a weekday when school's in session, that's very difficult. We tried. And in fact, this year we tried to move our Eid prayer to a soccer field or somewhere that we avoid all these problems. So from our part, from the board perspective, we are doing everything we can to alleviate. And we know it's a problem. We are not just brushing it off as something casually. People park like that, as I see, nobody could pass. So anything that is productive to solve this problem, we are welcoming it. Anything else, I am more than happy to respond to. Thank you.
Thank you. No one else has signed up to speak. Is there anyone that would like to speak on this that hasn't spoken? Thank you. I'm going to close the public comment on this matter and turn it over to the board.
Vice Chairman, just so you're aware, I did look it up in the vehicle and traffic law. It's 30 feet from the stop sign. You're welcome.
Hit the mic, Kevin.
Is there any other public area besides the schools within, say, half a mile of the mosque?
Yeah.
The shuttle idea, when it's not in conflict with the school times, did it work? So if we were able to find another area that's not time constrained like the school, and use that as a shuttle bus staging area, that might solve a lot of the problem. Is there such an area?
I don't know any.
I don't know if it's the Traffic
If-
Safety Board's responsibility to identify shuttle opportunities. I think we have to, it sounds like there are rules in place for the road that are just not being followed and then not being enforced. So, we'd have to investigate. So one thing that we could do, once we have quorum, is make a referral to the police department to see what could be done to increase enforcement of the existing traffic laws and restrictions that should be helping, but are clearly just not being followed.
Um,
Thank you. Begging the boards and the gallery's indulgence. Just a couple of quick questions from my point of view, because I actually don't live far from this either. I live on Stewie, which is just off the map on the southern side. Yeah. So I've also seen and, well, witnessed and in some cases been caught up in some of these problems myself. I know that the mosque was built. I've had an opportunity to go attend the mosque and attend services. Thank you so much. I know that the mosque was built in the 70s, and I've heard discussion that there's been some discussion about building another mosque, which would address this in the long term. Does anybody know if that's true? No?
I'm one of the resident of town of Amherst, not far away from Mont Bleu, and also I am also participating in activities of mosque as the chairman of the council of the mosque. And this is actually my fourth attendance for the meeting for parking issues over the last 9 or 10 years. So technically I'm a veteran. I've been coming here for some time. Coming back to the issue, since this mosque was built, which was 1992, about 33 years ago or something like that, there are about 45 mosques, believe it or not, now in Western New York. And still, we are not able to solve the problem. We thought when we extended the portion of the mosque and extended the parking spot, that would be enough for our children to come because we'll not be able to fill it. What happened was that, which we never counted, and nobody in Western New York counted, about 80,000 Bengalis from New York City moved into Western New York. And quite a few of them bought a property in that area. And when I was a president in 2023, when you're referring to them, we did the extension, and I was here at that time. And I used to go in person on Friday, that hour and a half, and I have spoken with these individuals, and they would not listen. They look at my face, they would not listen to me. And I'm the president of the mosque. So one of the things I had, we are willing to pay Amherst PD, for this 2 hours, if they have staff available, so they can stand on Mont Bleu. And because when I go in, I'm a civilian. Nobody cares about me, whether I'm president or not. I have no authority. When somebody comes with a badge and a gun, is different. So that would be my suggestion. I can tell you about that. If you even have a bus and coming from another school, these people who are parking, trust me, they will still park there to do that. And that's not going to solve it. It is the police with a badge is going to solve. They are afraid of them. but they're not afraid of me and anybody else to do that. So unfortunately for the mosque, unfortunately for the community, is that there are people who moved in, which I think nobody have counted for, which is causing, this additional issue now to do that. And I will tell you, I cannot apologize enough to say that we are very, very sorry that we are causing this kind of problem for you.
Okay. And the last note, also, if you pull back the map a little bit, I understand that the schools are often sometimes very overwhelmed, but UB is also not very far. And admittedly, sometimes during the day, UB parking is worse than it would be at a school, but that's another option for having people park at the UB North campus and then running a shuttle to your mosque.
Well, I can tell you about UB, between that, the prayer time, which is, let's say, between 1 to 2:30, I used to pick up and drop my son. UB, you do not have any parking available at that time when the school or the college is open. I have my daughter gone through UB, my son went through UB, and I was assigned to sometimes because we don't have enough cars, so to come and drop and pick it up. And I know very well at that time, that's a peak time to park there.
You're correct.
Well, the thing is that the prayer starts, we have two prayers. And this is another reason. We started having a second prayer because of that specific nature of issue, so that we can, reduce the number of people who are coming to that. But the problem is that the number of people have increased because the population has increased to do that. And one of the things you may not know about Muslims, Muslims prefer to go to a place which is more crowded. Somehow they feel they have more benefits to go over there. And since this mosque, because instead of getting less, we get more people to do that. So the prayer starts at 1:35 and then ends at 2:15. Yeah.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to close public expression on this matter, which I think I already did, but just to reiterate that we did. And there's nothing that the board can vote on because we don't have a quorum. And in my opinion, there's not anything before us to vote on. I mean, we want to find a solution, but adding new signs doesn't seem to be the issue. I think that we should just table this and for maybe more police enforcement. What does the rest of the board think?
I'm thinking that this is going beyond the traffic report. This is a big problem. It involves the police department, it involves the mosque, it does involve the traffic board because, with all the parking, it involves the community. I'm thinking this is one that requires a high-level meeting of presidents, the community presidents, the mosque presidents, the imam, representative of the traffic board.
I was going to say, but that's out of our realm. We don't have authority to do any of
I
that.
can make the recommendation that someone suggest a high-level meeting. Even as a citizen, I can make that recommendation, let alone a board member. And it's up to whoever, who decides who makes those meetings to do it. Because there's a lot that needs to be talked about here. I see no ill will really on anybody's side, aside from the inconvenience of being bothered and safety. The mosque people want to work with the neighborhood. The police department would like to see everybody get along. Let's find a way to make everybody get along, because there's no ill intent here. I can see that. People want to work and resolve this. They just need a forum to do it. And it's not the Amherst Traffic Safety Board. It's not us.
I think another problem that wasn't mentioned is just the ease of visitors exiting, coming in and exiting the mosque property. It's not easy given the one driveway. This board has recommended in the past that potentially 2 driveways be explored, one in, one out. I approached the county, this is a county highway, and asked that, could we utilize this driveway? I think this property is owned by the mosque. And they said this is too close for 2 driveways. It doesn't meet their standards, so that's out of the picture. But solutions like that should be further pursued, discussed, because quite frankly, parking on Mont Bleu and getting in the mosque is a lot faster than parking way back here and then trying to navigate out and, waiting in queue. So it's a convenience thing that they're parking illegally. And you're absolutely right, they're not enforcing it now. So the suggestion from the public to implement a no parking anytime, 75 feet from the corner, if they're not paying attention to the current signs, they're not going to pay attention to that sign. That's, I think, the only hesitation on implementing that. So I don't disagree with you, Kevin.
Because, I mean, if it comes down to, as the president suggested, hiring, who was it who suggested actually actively hiring Amherst police guys? It was your suggestion? To actually actively hire them, what, overtime or whatever? I mean, I don't know. If that's what it takes, that's what it takes.
If I may, as a town board member and someone who votes on budgets and votes on staffing, in the long run, I'm very uncomfortable over the idea of saying that we leave this on the doorstep of the Amherst PD. They have a lot to do already, and this is the best long-term solution is not calling the Amherst PD. The best long-term solution is let's find enough parking spaces to make this work. That in the short term, that doesn't solve your problem. The problems are short and long term. I'm really hoping that we can find a better long-term solution than assigning police officers. And I like the idea of working up some sort of I don't know what we would call it,
A forum.
Community meeting, forum,
A
yeah, whatever.
forum.
I think that's a good idea. And
how would we do it?
Well, falls on my shoulders. I'll talk to someone today and I'll figure out what we can do. But I think
that's what it's going to take.
I think we've reached the stage where we do need to do that.
Thank you, Councilmember. Okay, the next item on the agenda will be introduced by Chris. It's item number 1.
How was that last item left? We can't vote on it.
So we have to leave.
Okay, recommend, okay, so we're waiting for a quorum to vote on that. Okay.
Okay, item number 1 is specific to Cottonwood, the 500 block of Cottonwood, where a resident reached out and is concerned with the traveling speed of the public through that neighborhood. It is signed at 30 miles per hour. Let me just show you where that is. So the section of Cottonwood is between North Forest and I think this is also Cottonwood. So it's this section right here is what they're looking at. There are children at play signs placed by the public. They're not town signs, but the neighbors put them up. In response, the town, as we often do prior to discussion, put up discrete counters to collect traffic. All that information has been provided to you today. And we put it at pole 586, which is about mid-block, to try to gain the highest speeds. And what we found out is eastbound has a total of 321 vehicles traveling per day, and the 85th percentile speed is 35 miles per hour. There are about, if you look at who's traveling over 30 in the eastbound direction, you're nearing about 170. vehicles per day. In the westbound, similarly, it's 36 mile per hour in terms of 85th percentile with a volume of 331. And you've got, like I said, about 170 vehicles, maybe 180 vehicles traveling over 30 per day, with a range of, with a fair amount even going over 40. So if you look at that number alone, you've got 30 vehicles per day traveling over 40 miles per hour. This is the total volume, 652. And for traffic enforcement purposes, the worst hour is 3 o'clock, what we find with an average of 1.6 vehicles during that hour traveling over 40 miles per hour. In terms of crash report, we only had, we had 0 reported crashes in the past 3 years on that strip of Cottonwood. And that is all I have to report on that. I'll turn it back to the board.
Thank you. The first speaker for public comment is Wendy Sanacor.
Thank you to the board for hearing me out tonight, and thank you also for running the traffic study. I was the one that requested it. I live at 555 Cottonwood Drive, which is about 3 houses in from Cedarwood, further from North Forest, but very close to where Cedarwood and Cottonwood intersect at the end. By the time the cars will turn from the Cottonwood Cedarwood area to travel eastbound down our street, there are times that they're hitting 40 miles an hour by my house. Obviously, there are troubling results that Chris shared with us. We're a residential street, and in count today with my neighbors, we have at least 24 young children who live on the street, and that was a rough count of kind of the families we know. Most of them are, well, all of them are under the age of 14, most of them under the age of 7. So we all know that kids are outside daily, especially now. They're walking, they're biking. We've seen kids ride their bikes into the street because children don't know to stop. They will chase a ball that runs into the street. I mean, even my 11 and 14-year-old will sometimes chase after that soccer ball because it's more important than them, at this point. So we are urging the board to consider a couple of options. We would like to see a speed trap installed. Increased enforcement will send a message that will allow for better data collection as well. We would like to see potentially a digital sign posted somewhere, something like what's near Heim with the speed limits. And there's also one over Park Club Lane has them as well, to just remind traffic to slow down to the 30 mile an hour. And assess whether the street qualifies for a reduced speed limit. It sounds like from the beginning of the meeting that is not an option, but we would, love for that to be explored as well. We're just looking for some straightforward steps to protect the safety of the families. We're not asking for anything extreme. We just want to head it off before there's actually a real issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a, it's just recommendations.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is, I'm sorry, I can't read the writing. Matthew, I'm sorry.
I don't know you, but I've lived on Cottonwood, that block, for 30 years. I can tell you this is not a new problem. It's been going on since my daughter was little, and she's 31. The issue is this, and I agree totally with what you proposed. You need a slower speed limit on that block. There's a lot of little kids. I think you're right. There's probably about 30 kids that are very small. They don't know the difference when the ball goes in the street and there's a car going down the street at 40 miles an hour. We need to explore the slower speed limit. We also need to, and I know you don't want to hear this, but you need to look at a speed bump. I know you don't want to. You said you don't, but I want to understand why it isn't an option.
The board can respond after the public comment period.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I want to understand, because the trade-off is, and I know police and fire and EMTs don't like them, you have a speed bump in your own parking lot, which I know is not a street. but it's to deter speed, right? So here's the thing. Your trade-off is that one of these little kids is going to get hit by one of these maniacs going 40 miles an hour. And that's the trade-off. So you slow down police, you slow down fire, you slow down EMT, who are probably going to wind up rescuing one of these little kids that's going to get knocked off by one of these crazy drivers. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to speak on this matter? I'm going to then close the public.
Just wanted to add something really quick. I was out playing with my children the other day, and we were in the street playing soccer, and we had a Mini Cooper turn down the street who's a frequent flyer on the street, and he revved his souped-up engine and passed us, and I kind of went, slow down, and he turned around down the street, and he came back. First he flipped me off, then he turned around and he came back, and he rolled his window down, and he had a very verbal exchange with me and my two children out there. And he said, I'm going 35 miles an hour. It is within my right to go 5 miles above the speed limit here. So that seems to be the thought process here, that we can just do whatever we want. And, you know, I want to echo that second. The kids are just the biggest concern. So thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to close public comment on this, and now we're going to turn it over to the board for discussion.
So just to comment about speed bumps, if it were possible for the board to just approve speed bumps, we would. Everyone on the board is in favor of speed bumps. There's several reasons due to the highway department and the police department. You know, the town is not willing to approve speed bumps. So that would have to be an item that would go before the town board. Generally, everyone on this board is in favor of speed bumps, however.
So I would just add to that, that we actually had made a recommendation for speed bumps to be installed on a street in the town that went to the highway department. They actually had planned out the street to move forward with installing the speed bumps. One of the things that the town board will require as part of it is 70% of the residents on that street was the number that they were aiming for to be supportive of the installation of the speed bumps on the street. I believe on the street where they were looking to pilot it, when the notice was given to those residents that they were going to have the speed bumps installed on their street, there was about 70% of the residents in opposition to having them installed on their street. So so it would be the section of the street where the speed bumps would be installed that they would be looking to do the test on. So there is opposition from emergency responders to them. There are issues with them related to snow removal in the town. There are challenges that come up with complaints from the vibrations of the speed bump, from people that live on the speed bump, that everybody wants the speed bump, but nobody wants the speed bump in front of their house because they're the ones that'll have the vibration. They're the ones that'll have the thump thump every time a car goes over it. So as part of the work that the town would be doing, the town is working with our board. We have identified a couple streets. The consensus from the two residents that are here in the audience this evening that appear to be in favor of this board can make the recommendation to add this street to the list of potential candidates that would be there. There would be, and that's where this issue comes from the town right now before the town will move forward. If we get to the point of where we put a speed bump on every single street randomly that goes through, there's a criteria as to the distance those speed bumps need to be. It's not just going to be one speed bump on your street. Depending on the length of their street, there may be 3, there may be 5, there may be 10. I don't know. That's all the stuff that would need to be worked out with engineering as to what the process, what the criteria is, what the distance is, what the speed threshold is. We're not going to install them on a street where the speed issues are 2 miles per hour over the speed limit. They need to be targeted in the areas where there is a significant speed problem and significant parts over. So that's part of why the town has not moved forward, is that a criteria has not been established. And as of this point, there has not been a street identified where the residents are in majority in favor of using their street as the pilot. The other issue that you have when you install speed bumps, which is the reason why if you go to the city of Buffalo, that you now have speed bumps on every street where they put them in, because as soon as you put the speed bumps on your street, the traffic that's on your street that is speeding is going to be diverted to another street because people will avoid your street, which then leads to problems on other streets. So a lot of times when you solve one problem, you create a new problem. So those are all the things as part of this process that need to be evaluated, need to be taken into consideration. It's not just as simple as we're going to put a speed bump on a street because the residents want it, right? So if you can get on your street, on the part where you're talking about between Cedarwood and North Forest, if there's 50 houses on that stretch, if you can get 70% of the residents on that street to sign a petition that they're in favor of their street to be a pilot site for the town to consider the installation of speed bumps, you can provide that information to Chris and to this board, and we can further pursue it as a test site.
The common study period is a single week, Monday to Friday. We essentially eliminate Monday and Friday, so it's a full 3 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Okay. Normally, the highway department doesn't leave the boxes out over the weekends.
They check them during the week periodically, and they don't have those operations over the weekend. That's correct, and that's what we do for every single count in the town.
Okay, so so that answers the question in regard to the speed bumps and criteria of what you can do as residents of your street to get that petition signed by the residents on your street. If you get that and you get 70% of them to sign that they are in favor, you can share that information with Chris, and that will be something that we can further consider with the town board and highway department and engineering department to further pursue that. With that, turn it back over to everybody else to discuss.
Less obtrusive, can we try one of those flashing signs like on Park Club Lane? Those are the ones that, what do they call them? The radar activated speed.
So yeah, the police department has a trailer. It's a radar feedback sign. This board could request the police department to add that to the list to put out a trailer that shows passing speeds. That brings awareness to the neighborhood. I would imagine these are the same folks that are traveling on the road. I think like the resident said, it's the same van. Typically just looking at this neighborhood, it's not cut through traffic, it's neighborhood traffic going to the next street. So you probably have the same folks, and they'd pass that sign and be made more aware of their passing speeds.
And I would also add to the installation of that sign on a residential street, there normally is opposition, again, from residents, because nobody wants the flashing light in front of their house. Nobody wants that sign on their property next to their driveway. So you'd have to identify the resident that would want that. And then also looking at the total street count of 600 cars, there'd be criteria of the total traffic on the street to warrant the cost of installing that. And I would say that street probably does not meet the total vehicle count that the town would be looking for to make the investment on the installation of that sign.
It's 652 is total count.
So the speed limit in the town of Amherst is 30 miles per hour, and that is the lowest speed limit that the town can post legally. There is criteria, school districts and school zones, other things where that speed zone can be lower. However, the town of Amherst currently on the town law is the speed limit for the town is 30 miles per hour. The village of Williamsville does have parameters, and Clarence has some parameters to drop those speeds lower. Currently, the town of Amherst, there would require a local law to be passed by the town of Amherst that would allow for speeds to be posted in the town lower than 30 miles per hour.
So let me expand on that. So the state did allow towns of this size to lower it down to 25 miles per hour, but it has to be signed off by a traffic engineer. The traffic engineer will look at the 85th percentile speed to see if it supports 25 miles per hour. In this situation, the data shows that it's 36 miles per hour. And therefore, you normally set the speed limit to that that 85th percentile speed. So when the traffic engineer looks at this, they don't have the justification to say 25 will work, because what that 85th percentile speed is showing is that's the speed that people are most comfortable traveling on Cottonwood. And that's what traffic engineers, will say over and over again, that 85th percentile speed is a representation of what it feels to the driving public to feel comfortable driving on that road. What's that speed? So 25 is not supported, and the traffic engineer won't sign off on that speed. So I don't think it'll go anywhere.
Also, putting a sign on the street saying that the speed limit is 25 miles per hour instead of the current 30 miles per hour doesn't mean people are going to drive 25 miles per hour.
If they're ignoring one sign, they'll ignore another.
Right, so it's just a sign on the road that we already know that people aren't following the current speed limit. Lowering it is not going to make them follow it. That's what this board will talk about now. So it's not necessarily when we say resident traffic, it would be resident traffic of the neighborhood. If you were to do, so resident traffic would be resident traffic of the neighborhood. When you talk cut through traffic, that would mean somebody is entering on one side of the street to get from Klein Road, then using your street to get to North Forest or vice versa, and not making a stop in the neighborhood. So there's studies that could be done where the town would put people on each side of the street, read the license plates on the cars that are entering the street from Klein on Cedarwood, making the turn onto your street, and then exiting and going the other way, doing that to determine which cars are actually residential cars and making a stop somewhere in the neighborhood versus cars that are entering and directly exiting without making a stop. So the assumption is based on that your street is not a direct connect between the two streets. That majority of the traffic on your street is residential traffic from people making a stop somewhere in the neighborhood that's connected to your street. Correct. It would still be a residential street, not a cut-through street. A cut-through street would be like I just said, would be an end-to-end, somebody driving the street and not making a stop in the neighborhood that the street is connected to. So recommendations of the board as next steps.
Why don't we try the police trailer? Just for neighborhood awareness.
APD trailer, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The speed trailer, the one that flashes your speed.
Do you have an opinion on that?
We can certainly put it out there. It's unfortunately, we only have one operational right now. One of them was crashed into last year and it's not in service. And unfortunately, there's a long waiting list for that trailer right now. I can put in a speed enforcement detail. We did have one last year on Cottonwood, basically the area between Rosewood, kind of where it curves till Cedarwood. We didn't end up having a lot of enforcement at that time, but the straightaway that you're speaking of probably does have a little bit more speeding, so we'll put in an enforcement detail for that. And I'll put it on the list for the speed trailer, but it could be a little while.
No.
Thank you, Captain. And the next issue, now that we have a quorum, I'm going to make a motion that we turn the meeting over to the chairman. Somebody please second it. I mean, is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Dunn, for seconding that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. The meeting is now being chaired by the chairman.
Thank you. Just for those in the audience, I'm Eric Froz, chairman. Sorry that I was late this evening. Other recommendations that we would ordinarily make in this situation would be to help to slow the cars down the street, which is parking cars in the street, which sounds, again, counterintuitive. But if cars are driving up and down the street, Normally, when there's cars speeding up and down the street, the first inkling that the residents of the street have are to move their cars and park them in their driveway. However, that opens up the street to encourage cars to travel faster by parking cars on the street. Cars driving up and down the street have to slow down to navigate the parked cars, coordinate with somebody that lives across the street from you to choke it down even further, and park the cars next to each other or in some fashion on the street. Stagger them where possible. This is a street that does not have parking restrictions on it, so it's definitely feasible to park cars on the street. That is the number one, every traffic calming study that you look at, that's the main thing that you can do to help slow down traffic on residential streets is increase parking on the street, forcing people to navigate through the parked cars. In addition to that, we've referred it over to the police department for further traffic speed enforcement detail to have the police there. Just a fair warning on that one, remember that they may be detailing your street. We've had numerous incidents where residents that are complaining about the speeds are then the one that end up getting the ticket for speeding. So just remember, as you're saying things here, that you're asking for speed enforcement, so watch your own speeds. In addition to that, unfortunately, based on the configuration of your street, the speed bumps are something that, as we've already discussed and said, this board would be in favor of the recommendation of testing and creating a pilot street for those to be put in, but that requires the support of the majority of the residents on that street in order to move forward with planning that out. Other than that, unfortunately, when it comes to speeding concerns in the town, the hands are really tied based on the configuration of streets when they were built. If you look at newer streets in residential neighborhoods today, those streets have a lot of curves and bends in them because that helps to slow down traffic versus straight run streets like you currently have. So a lot of it is just the design network of the neighborhood from the time period when it was built that creates some of the problems that you do see on your street currently. Any other comments from the board?
That's what I was going to say.
So with that, I would encourage you to have your residents on your street get a little petition together, get that signed, and see if you have the support from the residents on your street in order for the town to consider your street in that project. Yep, thank you. With that, we will close item number 1 on the agenda, and it looks like the next person we have signed.
Order of business to revisit
If you have something that needs to be voted on, yes, we can do that.
Pause, rewind.
But we'll go back. Since we did not have a quorum related to item number 3 and item number 6 and item number 3, if there's any motions related to those that anybody on this board would like to make, we can reopen those agenda items to consider those motions.
I wanted to make a motion to traffic enforcement, or to the police department for increased traffic enforcement as much as possible for the times indicated by the community along Heim Road and Mont Bleu and the,
Fairwood.
yes, and South Wedge, to ensure that there's no parking occurring where there are no parking zones.
So that's just a referral to police department for,
Yes,
as discussed.
yes.
So all in.
I'll
that's-
second it.
Second, yep. So that, there's a second. Any further discussion? None being heard, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? So that motion would carry 6-0 to refer that to the police department as indicated for further enforcement. Is there any other items related to item number 6?
Hold on.
There was also.
That was number
propo-
3, sorry.
Yes, there was a proposal to form some sort of community forum involving all the parties involved to see if there can be some sort of consensus resolution, some way for all of them to talk and figure out a solution, because everyone wants to. We just have to figure out something that can be done.
I think that's a referral to Councilmember Zucala.
But we had to vote on it.
Yeah, so we would,
So
that would be the
I'm
motion.
making a motion that we refer this to Councilmember Zucala to find a way to get everybody talking, to get some resolution here.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? None being heard, all in favor? Aye.
And in fact,
Opposed?
I'm moving forward on that right now.
Okay, so that would move forward 6-0 for that motion. Any other motions related to item number 3? Okay, so that being heard, that can be added to the minutes of the meeting for item number 3. Moving to item number 6. Is there a motion on that item?
Yes, there's a motion to add a no parking sign on Spruce Road on the side opposite of the stop sign.
No, actually, it was expanded to both sides because.
Yeah, the way I've got it written in my notes is parking restriction for all hours here to corner on both sides of Spruce for a distance to be determined, held at a future meeting after residents are notified. That's what I have.
So yes, a motion for both sides, and then
So that's a motion by Nick. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, second by Kevin. Any further discussion? None being heard, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 6-0 to move forward with that recommendation and invite the residents to our next traffic safety meeting in June. Any other motions regarding item 6? None being heard, we will close item 6. And now we will move to the next person signed in, which is for item number 2 for Hopkins and Dodge intersection.
Okay, Hopkins and Dodge is a county intersection, although we own and operate the signal at that location. And in addition, we have a crossing guard that is present during the PM hour. A resident reached out and asked that the town consider placing a crossing guard or guards at that intersection during the AM crossing hours to accommodate the nearby school. I informed them that there is a criteria that has to be met and that we would start to collect data and bring it forth at the Traffic Safety Board meeting. It was further discussed that, there has to be a certain amount of volume of children crossing per the criteria to establish a crossing guard. And the resident responded that it's a little bit of a chicken and egg situation, that you'll find that people are not walking there because there isn't a guard. As such, we reached out to the police department and obtained, thank you, Captain, numbers that have been displayed, that have been provided to you, and I'll put up on the board. So if you look on the screen, it looks like, it varies, and it's really dependent on the weather. So when it was 62 degrees, they counted as many as 30 children, which surpasses that criteria, by the way. I believe it's 20 is necessary. But when it gets a little colder, obviously less and less people are crossing. So we only had the opportunity to count it during a 50-degree sunny day. And those results are going to be shown momentarily. So the criteria identifies that there has to be grades K through 8, and that is met. There has to be at least 20 K through 8 school children crossing. That was not met. We only counted 6 at that time, and that was on 4/28. It was 50 degrees and sunny. We followed the time start and time end criteria as established. And then there has to be over 150 vehicles per half hour. We have 436, so that was met. So the only thing not met is the volume. Again, 6. Happy to count it again, Chairman, if when the weather warms up here, but as of right now, it does not meet it. With that, I'll pass it over to you
Just one
guys.
question on this. You're saying K through 8 for the crossing guard criteria, correct?
Yes,
Dodge and Hopkins would be North High School though, wouldn't it?
So Casey Middle School.
Oh, and Casey, I'm forgetting, okay.
so Casey Middle School is right here. The high school is to the left.
So we currently have a crossing guard there based on the middle school hours, not the high school hours.
That is correct. The idea there is that high schoolers have the ability to cross safely, whereas K through 8 need assistance.
Okay. All right, so with that, we have Barb Sanchez signed in on this item.
I'm actually an educator at Casey Middle School, and I'm here more or less as a representative for our school with the permission of my administrators. I put a question mark there because I teach all day long. I didn't know if anybody else was going to talk. Nobody wanted to hear me anymore. But it's been an issue, and I literally drive by there probably 8:15 every day. One of the things and I'm not going to repeat obviously what Chris already said, but one of the things that I'm not sure if you're completely aware of also is we are home to our students that are of some limited resources where Prairie Ponds is. They do not have parents that are going to drive them to the corner, as I often see, and then walk them across. It's just not an option for them. And to be honest with you, that's the majority of the kids that are walking there. It's about, because I happen to be raised on Hopkins Road, so I know from Williamsville North to where I was raised, it was about 9/10 of a mile that falls within that. So that's a big group. We also have, because I know the high school starts earlier, but we have quite a few inexperienced drivers heading into the high school in the morning if they're running late. The numbers that you saw, it's an incredibly busy intersection. We've had multiple close calls. I've actually yelled back to kids, stay, don't go. And it's frightening. And I do agree, again, if you build it, they will come. We've had multiple parents ask, why is there not a crossing guard? So I kind of took it upon myself at this point in my career to say, one accident is one too many. So I guess I'm here, as I've made my career out of being an advocate for the children at Casey Middle School. I also know you had questioned a little bit about the high school. I can tell you, I went to Williamsville North many, many years ago, and your freshman and sophomore years, you don't have access to a car. So I know myself, I know we think that they're old enough to cross without assistance, but 14, 15, 16-year-olds probably still don't necessarily have those skills. So as I said, I see the PM crossing guard every day. Very excited about that. There's actually two. We have a morning crossing guard from Young's as you go on to Casey. And we're just really wondering, if there's something we can do to help those folks in the morning. So thank you. Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak on this item this evening? None being heard or seen, we'll close the public comment period and open it up to the board for discussion. And my first question that I have is actually for Captain Pearsons. Is it normal that we have crossing guards in the town for only AM or only PM, or is it normally both parts of the school day?
There's only, I believe, two crossings that are just either AM or PM, and it was based on the counts that they did well before any of our time, I believe. So I don't know the last time that they did some of these counts, but they based them on those counts from years ago.
Okay.
So there's one at Heim that only is the afternoon, and then Casey also afternoon, and there might be one other one I'm forgetting right now.
Okay.
And I'm kind of curious about the age limit, because at Maine and Harlem, there's crossing guards for the high school, and those are high school kids.
Those aren't necessarily for the high school. They might be for the middle school, and they also, Park School takes advantage of them, as well as Sacred Heart. So a lot of people use it, but I think it's more actually for the middle school.
Middle schools.
Amherst Middle School.
I know, it's down the street, and those kids cross at Kings Highway. They have crossing guards at Kings Highway now, too.
Yeah, and Kevin, there was also like a grandfather clause that, if it was already established, we weren't going to remove them.
Oh, no, I'm not suggesting remove them at all.
Yeah, here it is actually. So it spells out Main Street in Harlem, Amherst High School. So that one, you know, we weren't about to remove it because like the captain said, it has a lot more other benefits just aside from
I'm
the
not
middle school.
suggesting remove those at all.
So I guess my other two questions that I have, would we be safe with the assumption of saying, I don't know from crossing guard experience if you know the answer to this question or not. Would it be safe to assume that a student that is walking home probably walk to school? Would the crossing guards ordinarily be seeing this, if there was at both ends, would the crossing guards ordinarily be seeing the same kids walking to school and walking home?
Most of the time, the count is about the same in the morning and afternoon. There are some families that, on their way to work, drive the kids to school, drop them off, and then they're unable to pick them up because their work day is longer than the school day. So I think the count might be slightly higher in the afternoon, but it's probably not off by a lot at most of the schools.
Okay. Because I'm going under the assumption here on the list that we have of the counts that if they walked home, they would walk too, right? So
Probably.
we'd probably see similar counts in the morning. And then just my other question is there any ability or flexibility with the remaining month of school that a crossing guard could be placed there in the mornings to see if it's justified and warranted and get some counts during that time frame? If so, they would be budgeted and added in for next school year? Or is it something that once they're there and there's no recourse going back?
The issue right now would be that we don't have it in the budget to put another guard there without town board approval or changing the budget.
Okay. So that was kind of my question. So you answered it.
Yeah, I mean,
But my point, what I was going to say is that we know it's going to take town board approval to move that forward where we are in the school year.
Right.
To try and take a step here to see if it's warranted before taking that action, if there was room to do it, but.
I don't even have the funding to temporarily put somewhere in there just to see if it's appropriate or not, unfortunately.
Okay. Okay, so with that, open up to the board and hear for more thoughts, considerations. Chris, actually, I got one other question. Chris, you can get counts off the MyoVision cameras that are there, correct?
Yes. So just to explain that a little bit, all of our signals have cameras, and that's how we monitor and do detection. I don't know the age of this photo, but let's take a look. Yeah. So this is the intersection, and that little candy cane device up there is a 360-degree camera. We're always collecting vehicles as well as pedestrians that cross. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the AI ability to understand if it's a K through 8. So when we did this count on Monday, when it's 50 degrees, somebody had to review the video and make a determination whether or not it was a K through 8 student. But we, this count that I just popped up, this turning movement count, we can narrow it down to that hour to figure out how many people on the average are traveling. This count right here, 103 is crossing the south leg of Hopkins in the eastbound direction. So that's during the entire day. So you got about 150 in that day crossing that south leg, and that was taken yesterday. So we can get an idea that way, but I would rather have somebody, do the actual count staring at the video on a really warm day. Just haven't had a lot of those lately. Does that answer your question, Chairman?
Yes. Where do all those walking people go? They're not, yeah, we have the people crossing there, but obviously a lot of them are not walking to the school because they would have to cross over Dodge as well.
This could be high school kids going to the plaza. I don't know. Could be going to Bocce's, but yeah.
Okay.
Is there an accident report?
There, that's the north, that's the south.
Sorry?
Is there an accident report for this intersection?
I do not.
Okay. So since nothing really can be done here without town board action, we don't have enough counting information for the morning hours to even send a motion or anything over to the town board to take action. I think we need to get the best counts we can for a couple days in the morning on the nicest days we can find.
Okay.
That'd be my recommendation.
And I do just want to point out, the town board always has the ability to bypass this criteria and put one in based on number 7 here. You know, if there's an emergency or temporary condition, if there's a hazard, you know, if the town board finds something unusual. So there is some flexibility, but that's really a town board decision. I think you're wise to just report the best findings and make your recommendation based on the data.
Right, but with there being less than a month left in the school year, by the time this went to the town board to do anything, identify a budget, fund, do everything, the school year is gonna be over. Right, so I think we can get some good counts. Hopefully we have some nice weather in May. Review this at the June meeting, which would then hopefully allow enough time through July and August to have the town board refer to the police department a budget line to add an additional crossing guard, or the additional crossing guards there in the morning if deemed warranted and justified. I don't think others on this board welcome to disagree with me. I just don't think anything would move forward fast enough to do it quicker than that.
I generally agree. I would just add, I think there's a good cause to even add a crossing guard, even if the counts are not significantly different. Just based on the fact in the early part of April, we're getting, you know, we have a few days where we're at 20 or over. Also, we are, for the vehicle traffic, we are 4x the minimum of vehicle crossings at that time. So, you know, speaking of instances where there's a particular hazard, you know, we should recognize that perhaps there is, it's a high traffic zone for the kids who are there even. So I think that presents a good reason in and of itself to have a crossing guard. Also, as far as removing a crossing guard, the only time when a crossing guard would be removed if there are 5 or fewer. And there's actually few times that would even happen according to the current counts. We always seem to have at least 5, with the exception of 2 of the days that were measured here. So if there were a crossing guard, they would not be removed. There is considerable vehicle traffic above the minimum guideline, and yeah, there's a certain, if you build it, they will come effect. So I think regardless of the numbers, we should strongly consider making the referral to add one for the next year anyways.
Would you like to make that motion to council member? Would you like to make that motion? Are you making that?
Yeah,
motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion without further counts?
Exactly what is the motion?
What's that?
Exactly what is the motion?
The motion is to refer to the town board based on the counts that we have in the afternoon, and justification during the afternoon for it that there would be the same number of children crossing in the morning. Therefore, it's warranted for a crossing guard in the AM hours, and to advise the town board to make the recommendation to the town board to move forward with the addition of a morning crossing guard.
Well, what'll happen is if the town board nixes it, they'll just send it back to us to get a count anyway. So yeah, let's go ahead and push it. I'll second it.
Okay, so there is a motion by Nick and a second by Kevin. Any further conversation?
I'm torn, I'm sorry. I understand why you're making that motion, but I just think it's late in the school year. If it was earlier in the school year, I know, but since we're not going to get it this year, why don't we just give them more ammunition if we get a higher count? I mean, that would be my only drawback.
Councilmember Zucalo, what's the next board meeting?
Next board meeting is this coming Monday.
Is this too late to get on the agenda of the town board
Yes,
meeting?
it would be too late. It would have had to have been Wednesday.
Next,
Today at noon, I'm sorry.
The budget portion by the town board is held in like September, October. That's when you guys start talking about that. So that would be the appropriate time for him to add. You know, it wouldn't be a town board item now, is what I'm trying to say. It would be a, yeah.
Well, if we put it before the board now, what happens?
Worst I can say is no, so I think we should just ask to do it now. I think there's good reason to ask for it now, so we should ask.
I'm just looking at it from the timeline that to rush it before the town board now without
Without counts?
without full ammunition has the possibility that they decline it and it comes back to us anyway. And since there isn't a sense of urgency that it's going to be added before the end of the school year and we have time to just hold it and get the count, but I don't have an objection myself to moving it forward without that and have the town board say no and refer it back to us. There's no harm in doing so. We have,
There's a motion that was seconded, so I think everyone's.
yep, so we're still in the, yeah, we're still in the open discussion, if there's any further discussion. Okay, no further discussion. All in favor of moving forward with the motion without a count? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so that will move forward 5-1 to move that motion to the town board for consideration. If the town board, as that goes to Councilmember Zucala, if they opt that they want more data, they can kick it back to us, which time it would be reviewed after we get the recommendation back from them. So with that, the motion's carried 5-1 to move forward to the town board for the addition of a crossing guard. Okay, thank you. With that, we'll close item number 2. And it looks like we have someone sign, is that, sorry, we did number 3, we did number 1. Is there anyone else here in the audience that is not here for a site plan that is wishing to speak on any of the agenda items we still have to cover? Okay, so since we have nobody else, we will just move to item number 4, LeBrun Road at Mona and Hospital Drive.
Okay, on this one, a resident of LeBrun Road reached out and, sorry, what item number is this?
Item number 4.
Thank you. And what he well, okay, let me just point out. There's 2 intersections he's pointing out, LeBrun and Mona, and that is signed with a stop sign on the east leg, and the south leg is shown on the screen. There is nothing for the southbound leg. That is very not typical, non-standard. Typically, a T intersection is stopped at the bottom leg of the T, which is Mona, or it's an all-way. Likewise, at the VA hospital driveway in LeBrun, there is one stop sign for the hospital driveway and also a public stop sign for LeBrun going southbound, but nothing for northbound. And in his words, it's not clear as to which driver has the right-of-way. As such, he's recommending a sub-panel on the stop sign that says oncoming traffic has right-of-way. I explained to this resident that there is no such sign. There is a cross traffic does not stop sub-panel. That would not apply in this situation because cross traffic does stop at least in one direction. He then questioned if there's the ability to create a sign. I said in the MUTCD, there is the ability to come up with a test sign. It's got to get approved, but the likelihood of an oncoming traffic has right-of-way sign is very unlikely. As such, I'm asking this board to look at the situation and provide your recommendation. In addition, we do have counts that are not far away on LeBrun at 231, and that identifies that if you look at the volume, the highest volume per hour is 197. The warrants for an all-way stop for the major roadway is 300 per hour, so you wouldn't be hitting the all-way volume-specific warrants for, like I said, an all-way. In terms of crashes, we had no reported crashes specific to the intersection. I think we had one, I forget what that one was, is it showing up at maybe a driveway or a side swipe of a parked car, but it's not specific to who has the right of way.
Okay. Is it?
That's it?
Did you have the aerial up there of this?
Sure.
Is it normal that we would put a stop sign at a street in a driveway? That's the sign that's, I'm.
So what's the question?
So if you go up to where the driveway is,
Oh, yeah.
it's not normal that there would be a stop sign at a driveway.
So it would be very similar to what you guys just did at not Consumer. What's the Betterson Plaza's name? Romney, you know, where you guys just installed an all-way stop? What is it, Scott?
Romney in the parking lot.
Boulevard Square.
Boulevard Square, thank you. Boulevard Square at Romney. You can, there's nothing that says you can't put a stop sign at a driveway if the warrants are met. You guys just did it. So, you know, whether or not the VA hospital has the amount of traffic that necessitates a stop sign here, that's a different story. But I think like Kevin just said, it is probably a very old sign.
Installed before there were traffic studies.
Why they chose one direction, I don't know. We don't have records
It's a lot-
indicating this decision.
It's a little bit like that situation on Getzville with Elmhurst and all those roads and coming into T-junctions at.
You're right. So I did think of that. Let's see here. I've lost it. You know, the Woodbury, Greenbrier, Getzville, those intersections are a little bit closer where you can make an argument that, you know, it was intended to look at this collectively as one intersection. But these are pretty far apart.
Okay, well, what would happen if this was built today? What would the current traffic advisories be?
There'd be probably no stop signs on LeBron.
That's correct.
But we also know that precedent of the town board is not to remove stop signs. However, I could make two arguments here. One would be to just turn both of those intersections into all-way stops, so that they're going to be right on top of each other. The other argument that I would make is count the traffic leaving the VA hospital to see if that's warranted. If that isn't warranted, that we remove that stop sign and then just make the intersection at LeBrun and Mona an all-way stop sign. So basically make the recommendation to move the stop sign that's at the driveway down to Mona to make that an all-way stop. And only have one. I think having two all-way stops right on top of each other there's going to be little compliance with the stop signs.
I agree. This doesn't make a lot of sense right now, going the two different directions, and that would potentially solve the problem if the counts warrant.
Yeah.
I'm thinking the counts it'll be the same as the count up the road that didn't meet.
Well, neither one of those intersections is going to meet the warrants for an all-way stop sign.
Correct.
But if we send it before the town board, the motions that we can make before the town board to get support from the town board are going to be to turn both of them into all-way stop signs, or make a recommendation to make one of them, to move one of the stop signs, to make one of them an all-way stop sign.
Right.
warrant the justification for the removal of the one. Is the rationale I'm having in my mind, but I could be wrong on that as well. Town board may want always stop signs at both.
I like the always stop at Mona.
You can come up in
Yeah, no one
public
signed up
comment.
for it, so.
Mike Kozlowski at Fruhoff Ave. I just want to say I've driven this road quite a bit. I don't find it confusing one iota. I think it's super straightforward. I think the stop signs do a great job. When you're stopped at one, you can see a little ways down, yeah, but you can see the traffic in the other direction has a stop sign and they're stopped. I don't think there's a problem here, so I just want to add a counter opinion to the one person that's complaining. Here's one dude also standing up here going, hey, this is not a problem. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So that is the other motion that this board can make. We can receive and file.
No crashes. There is the addenda that came here, though. There's a paper that Chris put out in front of us here before the meeting. He's also recommending sidewalk changes. Let's see. Sidewalk in the VA property needs to be brought into ADA compliance. That's a sidewalk committee thing, right? I suppose you should solve the stop sign problem first and talk about that.
Sideway compliance would go to highway with milling and paving of the road to address those issues where sidewalks exist.
I don't have it in front of me, Chairman, but I think they're talking about ADA compliance on the VA property, is it not?
I think it is.
It says here, the two-way stop sign at Mona has led to a few near collisions when drivers without stops fail to turn and proceed left in front of eastbound traffic. I also feel it is important for pedestrians, including disabled veterans visiting the VA, to have a safer crossing. It is also a bus stop location for Windermere Boulevard School. While maybe not within the purview of the Traffic Safety Committee, the sidewalks on the VA property need to be brought into ADA compliance. Yep, so that's within the property.
Yeah, so that's not in the
Currently,
town of
curbs
Amherst.
are- Sidewalks meet the driveway instead of ramps, making it difficult for those. That's not in purview of this board to address that. That's within
That's
the VA's property and town code compliance and everything else is they do work on that site to bring it into compliance. Okay.
All right. So two choices: leave the stop signs as they are, receive and file, or do the Mona thing.
Any other comments from anybody else? Anybody want to make a motion to do anything?
I think what the individual who brought this issue up is getting at is that it's unclear in the case when you want to make a left into the VA property. I traverse this street actually many times because this is very near my house, and I don't have issues navigating the street either. However, I never am turning into the VA driveway. So it seems like the confusion is people who are stopped going westbound on LeBron sometimes don't always expect someone who's making a left into the VA would have the right of way instead of them. And I think that's their point here.
The same goes for Mona, for southbound turning traffic on a Mona.
So, yeah, as someone who drives along LeBron, right, I don't have any issue. However, I think the bigger point is people turning into and out of the driveway is, that's where there's confusion. So I would suggest it's worth getting counts to see if there's any action that's warranted. That would be, I would make that motion.
I would agree with that we should get counts at the two respective intersections and try and see exactly what's going on. Because the correct answer here is to remove the unwarranted stop signs. And maybe we have to make that motion to the town board to remove the unwarranted stop signs.
So we
and
gotta have numbers before we do it.
We have to have numbers before we can do it. And leave it before the town board to make a decision.
If the numbers don't show it, receive and file.
Correct.
If the
There it
board
is.
genuinely believes that removing the stop signs is a good decision, in that case, I'm sorry, I mean the traffic safety board, then make that recommendation.
Okay. So we will refer this to Chris. We can refer this to highway to get counts, or is it engineering that has to put a person out there to get counts for turning
Yeah,
movements at
I mean,
wherever it is?
The VA hospital poses a difficult scenario to put a counter up. They're usually put on public roads. Maybe we can attach it to this pole. We'll figure it out. It's not really a side street, and it's not our property.
Okay, so we'll refer it for counts, and once those counts are had, it will come back to us for further consideration. So we'll hold that item pending counts. With that, we'll close item number 4, and we will move to item number 5. Just for the record, we are going to remove item number 5 from the agenda. Reason why we are going to do that is because North Forest Road is a Erie County road. And the sign that is asking to be posted on that street would require approval from Erie County, and Erie County has a process in place already to determine if that sign would be placed. So we are just going to take that agenda item and refer it to Erie County for them to get their counts, do the site distance, and then monitor that sign. Because there is an issue with those signs that once they're placed, if that bus stop is no longer there, that sign needs to be removed. So the county takes care of that action with it being a county road. Do you have anything else on that
Chairman.
one, Chris?
Yeah, a little bit of an update. I did reach out to the county and the resident, and they already completed their review, and the sign is already up, and she's very happy.
Okay, so refer to county,
Is that the
and
sign?
we can make note of that the county has acted faster than we have ever seen them act.
I have a question. Is that the sign going southbound on Forest? Because I drove with,
Yeah,
there's
it
a
would-
sign going southbound on Forest.
It would only be southbound.
Okay, yeah, that sign is there. I saw it on Sunday. That sign, it's bright green, says
Yeah,
stop in a bus with the old collision thing going on. It's there.
yeah, it would
Okay,
look like this.
so that item is addressed and taken care of with the county and done. We will, item number 6 has been addressed, and we will move to item number 7, Carmen Road and Hennel Avenue intersection. Request for cross traffic does not stop sub-panels.
This one's pretty cut and dry. Somebody reached out and wanted cross traffic does not stop at this intersection. It's a 4-legged intersection, and stops are only placed on Carmen Road on the southbound and northbound approach. The resident claims there is confusion as well as an accident history. And we did confirm through an accident report for the past 3 years that there've been 4 accidents, and 3 of those have been confusion as to who yields the right-of-way at that intersection. As such, a cross-traffic does not stop sign should be considered.
I'm just gonna cut to the chase. I move we do it. Because I've thought that very same thought going through that intersection.
Okay. Second. All right, we'll move this one pretty quickly then. We have a motion from Kevin.
Sorry. Second.
Right, so we have
Yeah.
motion from Kevin and a second from Kara. Is there any other further discussion on this item needed?
Actually, I would like to offer, what about, okay, the residents in that neighborhood are gonna see, okay, they put a sign up on Hennel and Carmen. What about what's the next street over? Is that Emerson?
Emerson, I did not do a crash analysis there.
I wonder if they have the same problem. They're gonna be here in 2 months saying, why don't we have a sign?
They can come back in 2 months.
Yep. Let them come.
All right, so.
If you build it, they will come, right?
Right, yeah, I
So-
think we should expect that in 2 or 3 months. They're gonna say, they got one, why don't we get one?
And we can review that intersection at that time. So the motion before us is for the installation as requested based on the accident history that we have at the intersection from stop sign confusion. Is there
Is there anyone here to?
We have a second. Any further conversation?
Is there anyone from the public who wants to speak about this?
Nope.
I don't think anybody signed up. That's not on the sheet.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, 6-0. refer to highway for the addition of the sign. That item does not require town board action. Highway can just install that. With that, I will open it up to the board. Are there any other new business items of urgency that need to be brought before the board for discussion? None being heard, we'll close the new business and we will move to old business. As we move to old business, item A on old business, Hopkins, Red Oak, and Bassett pedestrian counts. We do not have those yet.
Yeah, we're moving through our counts, just haven't hit this one yet.
Okay, so we will continue to hold item A. Item B, Chestnut Ridge Road request for mid-block crosswalk.
So
Held for
this is
spring
one
counts.
that we did get to. If you recall, there's some sidewalk discontinuation on Chestnut where it's located on the north side and then it stops and then located on the south side. And a resident brought forward that it'd be a good idea to have a established crossing there. You guys took a look at it and said, let's see if an RRFB, a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, would be warranted. When we look at the criteria, we look at, is there a crosswalk? No, but we would obviously put one. Is there a minimum of 1,500 vehicles per day? In this situation, there is. Then we look at actual pedestrians crossing. We're trying to get 18 to 20. And we're at 7 for a 2-hour period. We had 6 in a 1-hour period. Then we look at stopping sight distance, see if that's met. Absolutely, that's met. We wouldn't establish a crossing if we were already close to a different crossing, and we're fairly far away from an established crossing at 3,000 feet, so it's met. Is the posted speed limit between 30 and 45? Yes. Is it only, it's only 2 lanes, so it's not. It's not like a 4-lane or 5-lane highway. So what we're missing is the pedestrian crossing. So you guys have to figure out, one, would you want to move forward with an RFB recommendation, or would you just want to move forward with just a simple crosswalk? And I'll bring it up on the screen while you guys are talking.
Honestly, I would receive and file. I don't think we have pedestrian counts to warrant it. We don't have a sidewalk there currently. There's no marked crosswalk currently. So all we'd be doing is adding a crosswalk in a potential area where it's not safe.
Chestnut.
I think a crosswalk here is an invitation to disaster.
And the only way you would put a crosswalk there is if you could provide some protection for that crosswalk. And it doesn't meet the requirements for the protection because there aren't enough people crossing the street there. So in essence, people shouldn't be crossing the street there, and installing a crosswalk encourages it.
I move we receive and file.
What is actually needed is the missing sidewalk. So you don't have to cross the other side to get to a sidewalk.
Well,
yes,
yes.
You guys have moved that forward to the sidewalk review committee, and that's already been submitted.
So
Done.
with that, I would say pedestrian counts are not met. Pedestrian counts are not met to warrant it. We referred it for the installation of the missing piece of sidewalk. That is the better corrective solution for the problem. Therefore, I would move to receive and file the request for a rapid flashing beacon because the requirements are not met.
Second that motion.
Second from Cynthia. All in favor? Any further discussion? None being heard. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried 6-0. We'll close item B on the old business and we will move to item C for Chateau Terrace, request for additional counts. Gotta love the spring. Except when it rains.
Let's see here. So this is related to a resident who came before this board and was discussing the traffic generated by Park School in the rear. Just for the public that's here specific to the Bedresen proposal, that's not what's on this item is not specific to that. This is more for Park School, and he asked that another traffic count be conducted in the neighborhood. The count was placed at 65 Chateau Terrace, which I am questioning the name of this right now because 65 is coming up here, which I don't think that's where we did it. Okay. Oh, Bob, you're here? Okay. So that's the spot that we did it? Okay, thank you. So we reached out to the resident, Bob, he's here, he's present here, and said, where would you like the counter? He specifically told us where to put the counter. We did that, and the results are before you today. There is 99 vehicles traveling in the northbound direction and 20 with an 85th percentile speed of 24. This is signed at 30 miles per hour. In the southbound direction, we have 227 vehicles, and that's 27 miles per hour. So vehicles traveling over 30, you have a total of 10. And we picked the highest, pretty much the worst day out of the days counted. You see them peaking at the 7 and 8 o'clock hour, as well as the 3 o'clock hour. And we've got nobody traveling over 40. So with that, I will turn it over to the board.
Open it up to the board for discussion.
Also, public comment period, too,
And-
Chairman.
Is there anyone that'd like to speak? Oh, okay, you're welcome to.
Bob Dirtle, 92 Chateau Terrace. The numbers on the traffic count, if you look, the counter was placed right at the beginning end of the school zone, which is 20 miles an hour. If you look, the southbound traffic, you've got 75% of the traffic is 20 miles and outgoing 20 miles an hour or faster. Southbound, northbound, it's 40%. That's why I wanted the counter placed where it was, because it's right on, the school zone. So you've got all those cars going over the speed limit for a school zone at that point. And that's now. I mean, it's even worse, going to be even worse. It's worse every summer with the summer camp. But I mean, these people are flying up the street. I can sit on my front porch and you can tell. I mean, these people turn the corner from North Chateau onto Chateau, and they just put it to the floor in a lot of cases. They're flying up the street, and I placed this right at, beginning and end of the school zone. So you've got people, 7 miles an hour average over for the average speed all day long. We're going through the school zone. I mean, you can put up 20-mile-an-hour signs for school zones everywhere. If there's no enforcement of it, what good is it going to do? I mean, and Chateau is a tough spot to, for the police to, set up a radar setup too, but something's got to be done because at some point, I mean, my wife has almost gotten rammed twice turning left into our driveway. People have passed her when she was going to turn left and turn into our driveway. It's happened twice. They don't care. They don't watch. I mean, I'd love, Captain McFadden said he was out. He was, checking the stop signs last fall because at the exit to Park School, you've got 3 stop signs. I sat there and videotaped it. Out of 95 cars, 90 of them did not stop for the stop signs. So, I mean, you got a big problem there all the way around traffic-wise. I'd just appreciate if we could get something done especially for the speed limit. The stop signs, I mean, you could probably fund a traffic guard for someplace just with tickets for Park School. I mean, I think you put somebody out there, give speeding tickets out, it might slow it down for a while, but they're just gonna keep right on doing it, but something's gotta be done at some point. The numbers show what the speeds are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the comment.
I will just make one comment on this, is that this board has requested and stated and requested that the driveway access to Park School curb cut be removed. That's the corrective action that needs to be taken to correct this issue. That's up to the highway department and highway superintendent to do so, and they refuse to do so. This board can't do anything about that. We can refer it to Captain Pearson's if he can put speed enforcement there. That'll catch one or two people if he can find a car to put over there during a time to issue a ticket, but that'll address it, and they can't be there every single day with every single request that they get. Unfortunately, the curb cut removal, all of that would go before, like, the town board doesn't even have approval on that because that's in the purview of the highway superintendent. And he won't do it. So
I want to make sure. You talked to Steve and Steve said no? Didn't know that. I'm sorry.
So he doesn't know that we. I mean, this board has stated numerous times that our request there would be to make it a gated access only for emergency response and to remove the full access driveway. But that's, again, based on the site plans that were approved from the building department, that are on file with the town, everything that exists with this particular spot, that's up to the highway superintendent to revoke that curb cut. And we don't have the power or authority to do that. The town board doesn't have the power and authority, so it has to be a continued conversation with the highway and superintendent. And I mean, elections have consequences, so find a highway superintendent for the next election that's on your side. So, open it up to the rest of the board here for further conversations. What's that?
If it's a state law, the next superintendent's gonna say no too.
The superintendent of highway could turn it into a gated, as we do the site plans, there's numerous site plans for emergency response that it's gated access, that it could maintain access for emergency response, but remove the full curb cut for regular everyday traffic. Yep, so that is unfortunately outside of this. We're on your side on this one, but we can't do anything. Yep. Yep.
Is there anything we can do to try and square with the highway department supervisor that we were requesting to close this only to non-emergency traffic?
We can, I mean, I think we've sent the
Because
request
it
to
sounds
highway.
like, based on your conversation with him, he wanted it open for the reason of emergency traffic. And that's not something we disagreed with. We wanted it closed for the non-emergency traffic. So I think we just need to figure out how to square that.
We can write another letter to the highway superintendent supporting our request for this. To my knowledge, off of my memory, it was provided to the prior highway superintendent who said no, and the current highway superintendent that says no. So we can send another letter asking for further consideration of making it a gated access only. There's no harm in us doing so if that's what this board wants to do, but we know the current position of the highway superintendent. There's, yes.
But it's always on the private. You can't, the only way you can force them to put up gated access, modify the existing permit, or put one in the public curb the vehicle.
I can only think of one in a public spot. It's, Harding and Worley. Try to get there. Oh, where am I?
Yeah, there's a lot of gated access.
No, I'm saying on a public road. Getting there. Here we are. Right here.
Yeah, and it's a heated pavement. Taxpayers have to pay for.
Chris, when you go into, oh, there's a cul-de-sac that's behind Blocker, is it Blotcher Homes?
Yep. Yeah, is that public?
No, I'm just wondering if it would make, if we could refer to highway for, not, instead of gated access, to install that style of roadway that it would actually, the grass would go through it, but there's stone under it, so it appears to not be a driveway or a road, but.
Where is that one?
That's right, it's that,
Right here.
right there.
It's an easement, Scott.
Correct, I was just referring to this one as another option for consideration along the curb line or something, to do something of this nature in the right of way where you wouldn't have to maintain a gate. It would give the appearance of not being a driveway, but would still provide emergency access. What's that? Correct. So you'd build this across the road, making a 10-foot wide area in there where you have green space where it appears to be growing grass that can be driven over with support for emergency vehicle access. Just another option instead of a gate that would maybe discourage people from using it as a driveway.
Can we get this up on the screen?
Chateau?
Yeah. I mean, if it's coming down to like 10, 20 feet here, where we're gonna put this thing, we should probably get a map and see.
My point is that it would still need to go,
This whole thing is public right here where my hand is.
right, so you'd have to go to the property line, it would have to be on the park school property side there, so it'd be in that, somewhere in that vicinity of where the curb ends. And again, I'm just looking for options that we can put in the letter if we're gonna refer it to the superintendent, of consideration of deterrence from people using that as a full access driveway.
Yet leaving it open for emergency vehicles.
Yeah, leaving it open for emergency vehicles.
maybe we
Sending a
don't-
letter to the highway superintendent just asking for the curb cut to be revoked. We know the answer that's gonna be there, so I'm trying to provide alternative options as part of that letter of things that he can consider to do in place of a full curb cut removal.
Perhaps rather than explicitly stating a gate, we can say any mechanism to make it only available to emergency vehicles, and then provide the example we just discussed.
Well, people could still drive over it.
Yes.
They just be thumpity, and then they're gonna decide to go on Highland Road the way they should go anyway, after one day of that.
Yep, keep those potholes growing. Don't ask for milling and repaving. Okay, so is this board in favor of drafting a letter again to the highway superintendent with that request as indicated? All in favor? Aye. Motion carried 6-0. Chris will refer that over to you to draft that letter. If you need assistance from me, happy to do so. With that, we'll close item C on old business. Move to item D, the bike path crossing at North Forest near Audubon Apartments, pedestrian counts, which I don't believe we have unless they came in today.
Nope, we have not yet done it.
We will continue to hold that one, and then we move to item E, Elmhurst and Gettsville for another RRFB study.
So similar spiel with the Chestnut. We did the count over at Gettsville and Elmhurst. There is an established crosswalk there. You've already made recommendations on how to improve that crosswalk to the highway department in terms of signage and striping. But the question did come up whether or not it could be an RRFB. Marked crosswalk, yes. Vehicle, yes, there's the volume necessary. You do not have the counts. We counted 3 within 2 hours utilizing that. And we try to focus it on Damon activity in terms of our count. You do have the site distance, not by much, but you do have it. Measured 262, you need 240. Nearest pedestrian crossings at Main Streets, miles per hour is good, lanes are good. So just in terms of activity, you just don't have it.
Any recommendations from anybody on the board so I don't have to say it?
Well, maybe it's not Damon people who are using this crossing area, but neighborhood people. And maybe an evening or a late afternoon count might be, I don't know, even so.
Yeah, it seems like a very narrow time for counts between 12 and 2.
That would be, and that would be prime Damon time. But again, if Damon people aren't using this because, oh my gosh, Damon has a parking problem because everybody drives there. And nobody's gonna be walking there from the neighborhood. Is there maybe a better neighborhood time to try it?
I don't even think the criteria is close, though.
Yeah, 3 to 20 is a bit of a jump, and we've only seen adults in this count.
You're going to have majority of the people using parking lots in that area from Damon to potentially produce the highest pedestrian count. Having 20 residents crossing on that in one stretch in a 2-hour period is going to be very hard to do.
Also, this is from August 24th. Is Damon even in session at that time?
Yes, we did confirm that. Yep, I actually interviewed people in the parking lot, making sure they're in session.
I would move to receive and file based on pedestrian counts not being met to warrant a rapid flashing beacon. There's already a marked crosswalk in place in this location to provide pedestrian safety and crossing.
I make a second.
Second by Kevin. Any further conversation? None being heard, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried 6-0. With that, I'll open it up to the board. Are there any other old business items to be brought before the board for questioning or further answers? Concerns? None being heard. Actually, I just have one thing to bring to the attention of the board. If you have the opportunity, I would encourage you to look at the town's website. On the top of the town's website was posted yesterday. There is a list there that says the 2025 proposed parking paving projects. Just take a look at that in your spare time. And if any items, any streets that are on that list strike your fancy or strike your memory of streets that we have talked about or issues, or any streets that you are familiar with yourself that you have concerns about, to bring those to the attention of Chris to see if there's anything that should be removed from prior notes to refer to highway to make sure that they address while they are milling and paving those streets. So just a note for those here to take a look at. Any other old business? None being heard. We'll close old business. We will thank our liaisons for their attendance this evening. Scott Marshall, happy to stay and remain with us while others depart. And we will move on to the site plan portion of the meeting. Thank you. Thank you. One thing for you real quick. We are going to move to the site plans. The first thing that we have normally, the site plans, there's really not a lot of discussion for them. For this evening, we do have, I believe, someone here to speak on behalf of the site plan, correct?
We have Sean Hopkins for the Worley Drive. We don't have anyone for the Main Street.
Okay. Should we do Worley? Where should we go first, Chris? We go in order?
Call, Chairman. So residents are here for Chateau Fruhoff and Maine. Petitioners here for Worley.
Sean likes listening to us, so we'll address the residents that are here first. So Scott, I don't know, Chris, you want to talk to this one, or do we just want to open it up to?
Do you want to give a brief update on why it's before us again, and then open it up to public comments? Yeah, normally we usually do that.
Appears to be a two-story, strictly commercial building. Ground floor plan is about 12,265 square feet. It's fully enclosed, structured parking. The only difference between this one and the one they have approval for is it does not include any of the parcel at 22 Chateau Terrace. The house is up in that corner. Same place, same location.
What's going on the second floor now? You said it's all commercial?
Oh, no, don't have a floor plan.
So in terms of the TIS, they provided a 2-page letter, essentially stating that they compared the changes to the previous submitted TIS from January 2023. The 2023 study assumed 48 residential, a fast food, fast casual restaurant, and a quality restaurant. Each one of those land use codes represent, a certain amount of trips. They have since moved to a entire, I'm sorry, do they call it retail? I think retail. Yeah, retail space using the entire 12,285 square feet. The proposed access has been flipped. The basement parking is now off Fruhoff Avenue, and the smaller parking is off Chateau Terrace. That's an important note for you guys to understand. And there's the differences in terms of what they're coming up with trip generations. So some increases, some decreases. Again, that's based off of 12,285 square feet of retail only. We do not have a floor plan submitted to confirm.
The elevation show a two-story building.
Are they still going to do parking, the hill? Are they still going to take advantage of the underground for the parking?
It's all structured parking.
We don't know what's on the second floor.
In this case, the Fruhoff is completely underground, all that parking in off of Fruhoff that you're looking at. And the deck parking would come in off of Chateau Terrace. Closer to the intersection than it previously did, but the problem is the grades, because they can't use the parcel at 22 Chateau, because the town board, the lovely people from the Historic Preservation Commission decided that house was historic and they can't touch it. Or use the property at all, because they include the property as historic.
Say the entrance for the parking garage is off of Fruhoff now?
So this is the,
It's all a parking garage.
yeah, this is the basement level off Fruhoff. I mean, are there more spots? Yes, in the basement level. So you can say Chateau is getting less traffic than the Fruhoff folks. I'm not entirely sure of that. It's got less parking. I wouldn't say less traffic. And then Chateau is this is like the upper deck of the parking.
How can they propose parking for a second floor that doesn't exist yet? I mean, what if they put a casino up there that's gonna have like 1 million people
Well,
coming
that
and
is
going?
at the first floor level. The Fruhoff parking's the basement.
No, I'm saying that the parking is gonna have to serve what we don't know is on a whole second floor.
This is the first floor.
Okay.
This first floor sits over the top of this. This is a basement.
There is no, it's a one-story building. It's a one-story building.
Okay.
With a facade on the front, so it becomes like 2 stories tall in the front. There was a nice picture of it that was posted on the Buffalo News website, I believe. What's that? What's not permitted?
Well, you know, if it's 2 stories, mixed-use districts require 2 active stories.
All right, so we don't.
So
They can't build a 1-story building.
So this is the elevation submitted. That right there in the middle, which is number 3, is
They have,
on Main Street.
at this point, this is level 2.
Which is at ground level.
No, that's above ground level.
Well, yeah, right.
That's the second level above the first level at ground level. So we're a little confused.
So is it a 1-story building or a 2-story building?
Inside, it's only 1 story.
Outside, it appears to be a 2-story building. So is there a height restriction? Well, we're getting into planning
that's
board
not-
issues, and
yeah,
that's
that's-
not,
that's not
doesn't
traffic.
matter. to us.
That's not your problem.
That's not our problem.
That's ours.
I don't think we can act on anything we don't know anything about.
Here's his parking. Parking, vehicle access.
looks like there's
But-
crossings at the driveways, all the things that we normally care about, right? So
We're
Look at more detailed.
What is the
it
planning
looks
board?
like it's pedestrian friendly.
Oh, we have to get into the site angles and stuff like that off of Freehoff. I remember there was concern about sighting as you come off of Freehoff, making that, left onto Main, is vision blocked.
Well, in the one of the conditions that they had to request New York State that we turn into a loading and unloading zone.
Okay.
So that was kind of a
But we need to.
hope that we would do the same here, but that was kind of how.
Have they moved the driveway? There was a driveway concern also. I remember they moved the driveway back on Freehoff deeper? Okay.
But the other one got closer.
Been there, yeah. That whole basement level, the whole underground level is just parking?
Yes.
What's that business there and what's this business?
That's the elevator.
Okay. So I just want, if we can just take a second here so if we can just take a second to established what the criteria is for this board to review. At this point, what is put before us is a proposed retail 12,285 square foot building. What we are looking at on the site plans is the access to that building as proposed. We're looking at concerns regarding to the parking lot configuration, looking at sidewalk access, and everything based on the drawing that is put before us. If it is a retail building, that's what we are evaluating it based on. Number of parking spots for the square footage of the building, that is up to the planning department, not up to the traffic safety board. Height of the building, number of floors of the building, what the building is used for, all of that is in purview of the planning board, not the traffic safety board. So we will open things up here momentarily for the residents to speak, but I will just make it clear that if we start talking about things that are not related to the driveway access, the parking lots, and the sidewalks, we're going to cut you off. Okay? So we're not talking about any of those other issues here this evening because that is not in our purview. That goes for the members here of the board as well. Those are the things that are in our purview to review as we discuss this project. So height of the building, what the building use is proposed to us as retail space. That's the only thing that we are considering and taking into account in our review here. And the traffic impact study that was provided to us is 2-pager. Note anything that is in this letter that's provided as well that is of concern to us or what we may want to have looked at and reviewed. So with that, we have residents that are signed in to speak on this item. Jane Cox, you're the first person signed in. We will open it up to you if you wish to speak since you don't have yes or no circled.
Jane Cox, Harlem Road. I didn't have anything prepared to say, but I do have questions. Their traffic study was done in 2023, I believe. They're trying to use the same traffic counts. This is a totally different type of building. It'll probably have one business in it. The parking lot configuration has been changed, so there is more traffic coming into park for this building from Fruhoff versus coming in from Chateau. Fruhoff's access goes to the lower level of the parking ramp. Chateau's access goes to the smaller upper parking level. Chateau has a traffic signal at Main Street. Fruhoff has difficult sight lines, which this board has looked at before when we were talking about the bigger building. So it appears that more traffic would be coming out from that parking ramp, or whatever they're calling it, onto Fruhoff, and then you run into the problem of people that are trying to turn left onto Main Street with no traffic control, or turn right and end up on turning onto Harlem Road or wherever else they can turn around. So that was the concern. It appears from their letter that the total number of traffic counts based on their old figures, the new building would have 81 a day, the old building would have 88 per day. I don't understand how that could be. There's also something they're calling an outdoor amenity area, which I have no idea what they're talking about, nor is there a site plan that shows it that I've been able to see yet, and I haven't been into the planning office to actually look at the plans. I've only looked online. Let's see. That's about it as far as stuff that we can address, I think, with the Traffic Safety Board. I'm not sure if they have to go through the planning department process through the planning board again with the new building? Or are they saying that they are already in compliance? And maybe
No, they
Scott
have to
could
go, they have to go
answer
back.
that.
This is before us because this has to go back before the planning board.
Okay, and this also has to go before the design advisory board? Okay, is there anybody else that has to go before? Okay, so you guys and the design and then planning, and then that's hopefully it. Okay, I can't think of anything more right now, but maybe somebody else has questions. Thank you.
So, Chris, in reference to the 2023 traffic study and the counts that would have been used for that, the counts for Main Street and other parts of that study that were used would be consistent. The parts that would be changing would be the trip generations from the proposed property, correct? Or am I wrong?
You're correct. The only thing they changed, the only thing they're showing changed is the trip generation. Now, I would argue that, the trip distribution also changed, just like what Jane just said. They're changing the access points. Therefore, we're not seeing diagrams like they showed in the past of where, here's the old one, by the way. I don't want to misrepresent what I'm showing on screen, but, this background information wouldn't change, but what's coming out of the driveways would change, and the impacts to those nearby intersections would change. Trying to get you the right figures. All of these, the percentage of coming out of Chateau, the percentage of coming out of Fruhoff, and then the number itself, the actual number of trips. So that's missing in terms of, what they've provided.
Well,
All they're providing is numbers based on ITE trip generation. And I know Jane's confused at how did it go from 88 to 81, but this is how it's derived. Is these land use codes times the size, and there's specific values and charts that dictate what those numbers are. So I don't doubt that that's correct. You may disagree with them. But that's how they derived at those numbers.
Okay. Thank you. So let's just, so we also have, well, come on up.
I think it's me. I was right below Jane. Diane Gordon.
Okay, you're fine. Actually, you're above Diane, sorry.
Oh, okay. I knew Jane walked in right before me. Anyway,
That's why I
Diane-
don't see you on here. I was looking
Diane
below you.
Gordon from Chateau Terrace South. We have a number of concerns about traffic, et cetera, which is why we're here tonight. One of the things we want to ask you to address is the visibility on Main Street. We would like it if the front of the building, if there was no parking, maybe unloading if it's absolutely necessarily, but no parking, because pulling up on Fruhoff, you cannot see if somebody's coming from your left. You can't see if somebody's coming. So you can't pull out on Fruhoff. More traffic will go out on the Fruhoff side. There's no traffic light there, as Jane said, and it will be impossible to get off the street, especially if there's cars parked all the way in front of this building on Main Street. One thing that also is very important to us, and we would like this very much, is on Chateau, even though there's less traffic coming out of the parking ramp, we would like it if there was a sign that says no left turn. There's no reason why anybody coming out of this parking ramp needs to go down Chateau, which just makes a square and you come back out to Main Street. It should be right turn only, however you want to phrase it, but right turn only, no left turn. And on Fruhoff, coming out on Fruhoff, it should say no right turn. It's a dead-end street. Nobody needs to go down that street. You can't go anywhere. So however you want to phrase it, no left turn, no right turn only, whatever, but the traffic should be directed out of that spot towards Main Street and away from the neighborhoods that they can't go anywhere anyway. Anything else, Mike? Dead end, well, dead end doesn't matter. They go down there anyway. Anything else, Mike? Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone, Bob, you want to talk?
On the Chateau exit, entrance. I can't really tell where that is and what driveways are across the street because you have the Board Hava driveway, you know, the shared driveway. I mean, in Bowlby share the same driveway, but I can't tell from the drawing where that's, is that the driveway across the street? I can't really tell where the proposed new entrance exit is.
Yeah, but he's talking about like what's across the street. So I think that one is this.
Okay.
But there's no,
Shared part, it's a shared driveway.
it's a shared driveway. The only curb cut that's there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
It
you
would
got,
be
yeah,
kind of where my cursor is. It's slightly offset.
okay.
No,
But
it's-
that may be a problem, like at, you know, opening and, you know, entering and exiting the school at peak hours. Just with having that exit there, that's, you know, it's better than it was, but. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, buses go up and in and then turn around and come back down. Yeah. Buses pull in there. Go.
I think it's a no standing zone though, isn't it?
Oh, we've got every sign imaginable there, don't we? We've changed it. I don't even know if that's no stopping.
It's even worse. So they're not supposed to queue there, Bob. I know they do,
No,
and
they
I've seen the pictures, and
Yeah, no, the buses are pretty good. It's just, you know, you have the buses pulling in and out. 3 o'clock, it's, you know, it's murder up there, 2:45 till 3. And then, I don't know about the mornings, I'm not up that early anymore. So, but, you know, that's the only, you know, so you're saying that the driveway, the exit would be more towards Main Street?
Yeah, probably right where my cursor is.
Okay. Yeah, that won't be too bad, I don't think, but we shall see. It's the only concern I have.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm gonna hop in here. Mike Kozlowski from on Fruhoff.
Are you signed in?
No.
Okay, we just have to have you sign in.
Gladly.
Okay.
On the last proposal, when they brought in a scale model, which I don't think was brought before this board, I think it was brought before the planning board, so maybe you guys didn't get to see it, but the way the sidewalk is for pedestrians, it's really close to the building structure, and there's kind of like a blind driveway exit, because remember, it's not like a surface level lot, you're like in a basement of a parking ramp. And so as you come out, I am just a little bit concerned about how we're going to handle the like cars peeking out versus pedestrians walking down the sidewalk, and is there visibility for cars to see people walking on the sidewalk as they come across each other there?
I think I remember we talked about this in the previous plan too.
Yeah, we did.
What was the solution?
I don't recall. I'd
Okay.
have to check my notes, but I think we asked for signage. We didn't go so far as say mirror, but I think it was like yield to pedestrians, watch for pedestrians, or something like that.
Or there's like automatic beeping sounds if a car is coming up the ramp to warn a pedestrian
That's an
that
idea.
a car will be approaching
Yeah.
them. Yep.
Scott, do you remember if that was discussed? Any type of,
Audible thing, no.
and I don't know if the neighbors would want the audible?
Okay. So we'll. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Joy Testis Inquino. I am on the list. I wasn't going to speak.
Okay.
I'm like one of the last names. So I have lived on Fruhoff for 30 years, And when I read the paperwork today, I printed every single piece. Didn't read every single piece yet. But first I was happy because I was like, great, we don't have to deal with all the apartments and a lot of traffic. But I'm noticing the homeowners are here, but I don't believe Benderson is here. Am I correct? So we care more about this than the business that wants to put it together. So please be considerate and thoughtful of what this looks like to a dead-end street. I know you care about the traffic in the street, but you really can't pull out without seeing a lot of traffic. You can't turn left out of Fruhoff Avenue. When you're turning right from Main, you have to be very careful that there's nothing in the way. And so I question why, if they only have to have 31 parking spaces, they're gonna have 77 or something like that. It just, we're a simple, quiet neighborhood, and it would be really good if that were taken into consideration. Thank you.
Just thought of, which I never knew about Fruhoff before, but Fruhoff is so narrow that their garbage trucks actually have to back up when they collect garbage. They have to back down the street. There is nowhere to turn around, so. And the buses don't go down there anymore.
Okay. Okay, anybody else wishing to speak? Okay. Open it up to the board for discussion. I kind of made some notes here, points that were brought up as well. Ask this one to Chris. Parking restrictions on Main Street, if you go back to that.
Yeah, that's ultimately up to the state DOT. We can't ask the petitioner to implement parking restrictions on a state highway.
DOT asked. That was on the last one.
Right, so we can ask for it, can be asked for, but it's ultimately New York State DOT's position to do that. It's their call. Looking at that, I think there's a bump out on the Chateau Terrace side, but there is not one on the other side, on the Fruhoff side.
That goes into the right turn.
Because that goes into the right turn lane, correct? For Fruhoff.
This is terrible. Yeah.
Right, so for the turning radius onto the street, you wouldn't put the bump out on that corner because of the trajectory turning of the road. That's right, I remember that now. Okay.
Yeah, we had the state hatch this for the site distance in the past.
You're in the middle lane.
Right.
Right.
And you're at the start of a turn lane. If you're sticking out.
No, you're totally, yeah.
Yeah.
You're in a seat.
Right. The right turn lane, yep, no problem.
Okay, so all of those questions, that's stuff that would be under the purview and direction of New York State DOT, with Main Street being a DOT road, so outside of our jurisdiction to do anything in regard to that. It can be asked, though. Chateau Terrace, I actually have no objections, and I think it would be justified in asking for those signs to be placed in the site plan, but they would have to be placed on the petitioner's.
You're saying no left?
The no left and the no right.
Yeah, we have done that elsewhere, like on Park Club. So there is precedent.
Of asking the petitioner to
I don't.
put on the opposite side of the street as the person is pulling up on the town right of way. Would that be for highway to do? Or does that's where my question is. I agree with that request to ask for that to be done based on what those streets are.
Once it gets into the town, dictating what you can and can't do with traffic.
Correct. So we can ask the petitioners to put it on their property and visibility of people pulling out, like a stop sign or something to say no right, no left. After it's on their private property, after it's built, and in place, that's something that I'm just questioning now if,
Where am I going? You know where this is? You know what I'm talking about, Scott?
Yeah.
Is it these? Okay.
What about what's,
Are they? Okay.
what about, isn't there something similar as Damon empties out on the campus? Isn't there something, similar situation?
yes, so to put those signs of right turn only, left turn only, we can request if we want to, that the petitioner install those signs in their site plan on their property. They're not signs that would go in the town right of way. That's a,
Let's do that. I would like that.
I mean, you can do that.
it would be put into the site plan and be required to be there. It's a condition of their approval for those signs to be on their property.
Otherwise, it has to be a town board action. Quick, it cuts to the chase to be quick and easier if there's on the petitioner's property.
So Chris, you were saying something there as
Yeah,
well.
I mean, USPS on Sheridan Drive, I know it's a state highway, but they have one, no lefts out. No, it's across from it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I don't even know where it is.
That's across 4 lanes of traffic.
Right there.
It's across 4 lanes of traffic.
Pretty sure it's here. There it is.
There it is. It's across 4 lanes of traffic.
But that would be up to New York State DOT to put that up.
Yeah, but I mean, it can be done.
Correct. So my point here is that we can ask for it to be put on the petitioner's property as part of the site plan. If this board's in favor of it, are we? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, so we're in favor of adding that, drawing that into the site plan, asking for that to be put in place. There is precedent in other places that after it's built and things are in place, that a petition could come before this board asking for them to be put into the town right of way across the street, but it's not there today, right? So to put a sign there saying no left has nothing, no point of doing it at this point because there's nothing there, right? But that would not be on the petitioner's property, so that's not something for consideration. That's just reference to you to ask for after, if it is built.
Makes sense.
Yep, okay.
So it's a really good restaurant.
Yep. We know it's not a restaurant because they said retail. But if it's a store you like and you're trying to visit it and go back to your house, you're gonna have to.
You're gonna have to walk and use the pedestrian access, or you're gonna have to drive around the block a couple times to get back home.
Or just walk, yes.
Okay. Or you can just not follow the signs like everybody else does in the town. So anyway, we won't go there. All right, so the question about the site plan on the driveway, I actually would like to make the request to Benderson, the petitioner, if we can pull that site plan back up, if there is any way to design that parking lot, level 2 of Chateau exit,
Yep.
to align with the driveway across the street because of the opposing lefts. That's something we can ask. We can ask. True.
Yeah, and is it really an opposing left? You know, you've got
Normally
a
when the
left
site plan-
here.
But normally when the site plans come before us, we're always looking to align where we can.
I know.
So
Somebody making a left into their neighborhood.
well, we're restricting the left,
Yeah, we're
so
restricting it, so they shouldn't.
that goes away. So again, it's a ask of me, doesn't mean it's the ask of the board. So I just would ask others here if we want to, want to see if they can do that or if leave as is.
Well, what's the benefit of offsetting? Is there a benefit to offsetting?
Normally, no.
Normally, no.
No.
Normally you want them aligned. Yes, normally you want a T.
And you would think Benderson would have designed it with that in mind?
I'm still trying to figure out what code requires a two-story building. Okay, you're telling me
I'm good with opposing driveways.
Yeah, I think. They're opposing.
But like I said, there's probably a reason, and Scott suggested it might be the grade, so that might be something that we're not seeing here.
Okay, so we can make that ask to see if it can be done. Everything is just an ask at this point.
Yeah.
We're making asks, we're making recommendations. So
they put them where they put them. It's grading. Yeah.
get a grader and change the grading.
This is gonna change the dynamic of the traffic, because one of the big concerns was the residential traffic leaving at peak hours, 7, 8, 9 in the morning, conflicting with Bornhava and Park School. But this is gonna be a retail place, and, well, maybe it'll be open at 9 in the morning, maybe not. But even so, there's not gonna be 50 people coming out of that parking lot onto Chateau. The 80 people or 88 people or 81 people are gonna be more dispersed throughout the day, I would think. Right. So I think that's a good thing. I think that's gonna relieve a lot of pressure in the morning. I mean, we're going from a 2-story, 2-restaurant, 50, what was it, 50 units? Was it 50 apartment units? We're going from that to a retail place? I think there's gonna be a lot less traffic pressure overall. Which is good for the neighborhood, I would think. Because in days gone by, it wasn't 3. There were 3 retail places or 4 retail places, plus all the offices on top. So there's people there, and it seems to be there's going to be less. I don't know. Depends what kind of retail it's going to be, which we don't know. Yeah, we don't know. Well, again, is Benderson custom building it for somebody? Do they have somebody in mind already?
We're looking at it from what is proposed before us. Who's in the building, what it's used for is retail. Doesn't matter who it is at this point. We're looking at.
I'm just pointing out that it's probably less traffic pressure for Chateau Terrace, which is a good thing.
So going back to the other question, the Fruhoff Drive and the driveway access of the person pulling out from the parking ramp and the visibility issues. It's a parking, my comment on that is, it's a parking ramp exit. Go to the city of Buffalo where there's parking ramps every place you go. That's a common problem. I don't know how you ultimately turn around and correct that other than saying you can't have a parking ramp. So
Usually there's a gate, right? Is there going to be a gate associated with this?
No,
I mean, I drive to work downtown every day, and building I'm in, parking ramp I'm in is across from a school, and your kids crossing in front of you all the time, and you just have to watch. I mean, I don't know what the solution for that is at the end of the day.
Could you put reflective mirrors?
When you
What about Kara's suggestion for like innovative technology?
Possibly a parabolic mirror?
Yes.
Well,
Okay, so we can make a request for some kind of
pedestrian warning.
pedestrian warning access or something at the entrance and exit of Fruhoff based on the proximity to the sidewalk of cars entering and exiting. We can make the request and ask them to come up with a solution. No. You'd have to, I mean, that would be setbacks from the road and sidewalk property line. That's in planning board. That's, we have to assume that where they're putting the property line meets the required setbacks.
At least 5-foot snow storage.
Okay, so it's tossing this into the engineers department to come up with a solution for pedestrian
We're
visibility.
Asking Benderson for that as part of the review. Any other comments? Those are the,
I'd like to ask him for trip distribution and trip generation tables. They didn't include it. I'd like to see it.
I was asking if there was
Oh,
anything
sorry.
that I missed from the residents' questions that
Oh, my bad.
to answer, sorry. Okay, so we have those. So then, Chris, you had the true trip generations that you're asking for.
Yep.
Anything else regarding sidewalks, interconnecting, hashing, where we see that there should be stuff in play?
I'm pretty sure we're gonna see this one again.
Yeah.
So I think we got the preliminary heavy hits.
I do have a question because I think this came up on the last time. You have the visual, the street view again, Chris? So on Fruhoff, I believe we had the resident here. If you go on to Fruhoff,
Oh, the sidewalk?
the sidewalk, it still bothers me.
I think that was settled.
Oh, that little section, that's where I remember the section.
The resident doesn't want the sidewalk to
Connected to her driveway, was it?
connected to her driveway. But we're ending a sidewalk. I still have issue with that. That we're just ending a sidewalk at the property line. No. There's no other sidewalk. The sidewalk is on the other side of the street.
Yeah, there's sidewalk on the other side.
Do we want to require them to put an ADA ramp on their end and a connection on the sidewalk on the other side to connect to the sidewalk on the other side of the street?
No.
Okay.
I mean, you're encouraging a mid-block crossing there at that point.
Well, they're gonna do it anyway because they're gonna walk into a tree.
Well, now it's an uncontrolled, right?
Yeah, I have this right now. It's about sidewalk.
Right, but now you're gonna have a building at that ramp and or do we want them to end the sidewalk at the driveway rather than at the property line?
Well, it's still in the right of way.
No, if you go back to the site
It's in the
plan.
right of way.
Oh, we can, but the resident doesn't want it.
Wow.
No, she didn't want it.
So so if we go back to the site plan, can we just end the sidewalk at the driveway and get rid of that sidewalk in that stretch right there to the property line?
Yeah, but he's saying ended at their driveway right here.
End it there, then you don't have the problem of a pedestrian coming in and out being visibility on that side, somebody walking from that end because you don't have a sidewalk and it's a sidewalk to no place anyway.
We'll still walk on the grass, maybe. I mean, we took away the sidewalks on Kensington Avenue and people are still crossing where we have no sidewalks.
Right. But the person would be walking up the sidewalk into the driveway, crossing basically where they're currently crossing today. May solve the problem for the pedestrian walking up the sidewalk. Like,
Solution is requiring sidewalks on both sides. All of the road.
Yeah, but we're not going to get there, Scott. We know that. So I think Chairman's got.
like, why do we need that sidewalk? It's a sidewalk to nowhere.
I would agree with getting rid of that.
Yeah, but this board can weigh in and say, for the safety coming out of the ramp, they prefer that sidewalk not to be there.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Since it's not connected to anything anyway.
Yeah, it's a sidewalk going nowhere because the residents don't even want it there. But you're gonna, yeah,
I mean, the worst thing that could possibly happen as a result is people are walking on the west side of Fruhoff to get to the retail or get to the other side. Now they're crossing into the driveway to get to the sidewalk instead of crossing up here over the grass.
they could cross after the driveway.
Which would actually increase the visibility of the person walking for the person coming in and out of the driveway.
I'm okay with this.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Residents, what do you think about that? You're gonna live there.
So you'd be in favor of not having the sidewalk on that spot?
Yeah, it would be very similar to what's there now.
Same as now.
At the driveway, at the parking driveway.
It's very seldom that we make a recommendation to not install a sidewalk, but
This case it would be justified. And later on, there's still the opportunity to put it in if someone wants it for some reason.
Right.
Well, there's that too.
so can we make that
Yeah.
request for the variance on, or tell Benderson to make that request, or?
No,
just-
we would make the
They would
request.
make the request for the variance.
Yeah.
Yep.
But we would ask for it on the plan.
Okay. So is there anything else that we want to see or want to recommend?
Oh, we'll see this one again. There'll be plenty of time.
Okay, Chris, do you need anything else?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, residents. And something tells me we're gonna see each other again. So,
Folks, I mean, if you're concerned about the parking restrictions on Main Street and all that, I mean, there are state legislatures and state senators you can contact. I mean, there are places, there are people you can talk to. And for the most part, they listen. Unless the terms are over, and then they don't listen.
thank you. Sean, what do you want to talk about tonight? I know, it's a long one tonight. Haven't had one of these in a while. I like the February meeting we had.
You mean the one we didn't have?
This is the price we pay for our last few short meetings.
I think they're playing Frisbee. They're playing Frisbee.
I have two projects, Chris, the Young Development and then the Dodge Road, which is an adjustment to a site plan.
Young development.
Where are we here?
Which one are we talking about first? Early? Ooh. Yeah, that's it.
This is actually a request from the comprehensive.
This died or really? There's a bifocal moment here.
North is to your left. Yes.
And Bellingham is to the right, which is the east.
Spindrift to the north is Limestone.
Main Street. ECC's the left.
I drove by that lot today. I'm wondering what's going there. Oh my God, I drove by that lot today.
My battery's running low too.
So this is property Scott and I have actually been involved working on since I think 1998, believe it or not. It was most recently approved for an office project there. There was litigation, et cetera, et cetera. It was approved as an office project for the current owner, Aquest Development, several 100,000 feet. That project did not go forward. Now, another client of mine, Young Development, has entered into a contract to purchase this property. They're proposing 366 apartments, which is a big project, but it is 25 acres in size. It requires an amendment to the Bicentennial Comprehensive Plan, as well as a subsequent rezoning. A traffic study was prepared by Pacero Associates. Chris did provide us with a comment today stating incorrectly the traffic study assumed that we were also using The driveway at the back to connect to Limestone, we're not. That will be an emergency access connection only, which I think is a good thing. All the traffic will come from and leave Worley Drive, which is an Erie County highway. I believe the traffic counts on Worley Drive are approximately 14,000 trips per day. The project will generate somewhat substantial trips during the peak hours. I believe it's 32 and 104, 33 and 104 during the AM peak, 112 and 66 during the PM peak, but those are substantially lower than any previous proposal that involved large-scale office development. So we're early in the process, wanted to get your input, and then obviously this will come back in front of you. As I indicated, we do need to update the traffic impact study, but seeking your preliminary input as we move forward with the project.
So the traffic impact study was circulated to everyone here, but it's really, does not reflect what's before.
Yeah, it looks a lot like that.
So we're gonna, not reviewable based on that traffic impact study, Sean?
Yeah, Chris, are there any other comments that you'd like us to consider? In terms of the actual layout? How we interface with Worley Drive, pedestrian connections, on-site pedestrian connectivity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, for the board, you should be looking at big picture stuff, but not the minutia and the concept.
Sure.
So you're gonna look at like access points. Are you okay with that?
How many does it?
Do you like the fact that this is emergency gated versus actually making a full connection to Limestone?
We can't, it's private.
Private?
Yeah, Limestone's private. Yeah, that's the driveway off of Limestone. Yeah, why that was done that way, I don't know.
Limestone's not public?
Yeah, so we actually don't.
Public up to the cul-de-sac.
Oh, I thought it was.
You see when the driveway crossed? Yeah, there you go. No, and I don't know why.
That looks like
Public rarely.
someone had plans. That's what that is.
Well, but look at, I'm not sure if that was a mistake that just wasn't dedicated. I don't know. I defer to Scott.
It wasn't a mistake.
Okay.
Okay, so take that off the table. I can tell you, Sean, that in terms of like signals that we have difficulty with, and the chairman knows this, it's a little bit far away, but it's Lens Springs, Garrison, Worley. There will be a conversation about whether or not to have your folks study that for a different timing plan. Traffic's going to be generated through that intersection.
Yeah, but I think if we get that far to the west, we're getting, kind of far away for scope of this project relative to the traffic in that area. But I get it.
I think we want to see that, like in terms of your trip generation, diagrams. Is it going through this?
Okay, fair enough.
And then if so, we may tap you and say, this is problematic, you're just going to add to it. And we're not looking for mitigation like offsite,
Right.
Changes. We're looking for a study, timing plan, something we can implement.
Okay.
'Cause
And if you could put, I know you're going to say not reviewable, Chris, but if you could add those types of comments, it helps us. We can get the
Okay.
information you need.
Okay.
Otherwise, Worley is pretty good.
What are the streets? Okay, well, what street is that, where your cursor, what street is that going? That's Spindrift. Where's Young's?
Next to EZC.
Okay, that's Young's right there.
That's Young's.
Okay,
And
so
then you
peop-
have Tech Drive in the middle,
Okay,
right?
yeah, that's,
This is
so
YMCA.
I'm thinking those are the streets that people are gonna be using to get up to Maine,
Right.
going west. What's to the east?
Bellingham is the street directly to the east, which is a residential street. I do not believe that I actually know people living there. It doesn't seem like a lot of cut through goes through there, even though you can.
Okay, so,
Oakwood has a lot.
It does, okay. Oakwood does because it's a straight shot, right?
Yeah.
okay, what's gonna happen is there's gonna be a lot of traffic on that street. Anybody going this way?
I think they take Oakwood first.
No, they're going to take Oakwood, right? I agree with Chris. They're going to take Oakwood.
Oakwood's, you might not see it. It's right there.
That's gonna generate a lot of traffic on this street. So people are gonna get
What about making the right front?
Yeah, there you go.
Brompton's here.
Why is someone going to Brompton? They wanted to get the sheriff.
We're gonna have the Troydell Way problem here. That one's gonna go down those streets to get it to Main Street. But now there's gonna be how many hundreds more people?
Well, but again, that previous project, good comment, but the previous project was only approved a couple of years ago. And again, had far more traffic in it. I assume it was reviewed by this committee at some point. We are substantially reducing it compared to that project, especially think about office peak AM, peak PM, way more.
I just feedback on the development itself. Since you're gonna be having probably more of the residents congregate in the front area where they have the office, where you have the other amenities. Just to really be thinking about pedestrian crossings and safety, because you're gonna be bringing them up where the cars are gonna be coming in and out to enter into the development. So making sure that folks are safe as they're getting in and out, particularly during summer months.
Yeah, the big picture is you're looking at land use.
Right, but it does help. Right, but to the extent there's also site design comments, it helps us take those into consideration before we do engineering. I know.
Is this going to be, how should we say it, transient renters or proper homeowner properties?
No, these are, I wouldn't call them transient renters. These are for lease.
What's that, go back to the map if you don't mind. Winsong Place Apartments, I'm assuming that's all private road.
It is, yeah, it is.
And there's,
It's, unfortunately, there's no way to find a way to integrate.
No, and there's an intervening utility corridor there too.
There is a,
I was gonna say, is there any, Garfield, is there any, there's no connectivity to Garfield?
oh my gosh.
That would, yes, so we did have a meeting with the neighbors.
No, I'm making sure there's no connectivity
No,
to
we
Garfield.
had a meeting with the neighbors at the Main and Transit Fire Hall, and actually it went remarkably well. They're sick of seeing different proposals over 27 years, and the relationship with the previous owner, the current owner, is not good, as Scott knows, for a whole number of reasons. So they were actually very happy, but that was their biggest concern, is that we are not connecting their residential neighborhood. We are not proposing that. I think that it would be a lose-lose across the board. This property was originally zoned R3 going back a long time ago. So that, yeah, there's roads that end everywhere back there. It's
I tried to
strange.
connect this one,
Yeah, we tried to connect.
15 years ago, and they went nuts. Not a fun public meeting.
So is there an agreement from the owner on the other side
There's an existing easement.
for the emergency access?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think what Scott said is, Scott, the town required that emergency access, right? I assume so, because why else would it be done it?
Part of the site.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. So there is an easement in place.
Okay.
Because otherwise, we would have to have an emergency access to Bellingham, which we don't want to do. To meet the fire code.
Look at that, a gated emergency access lane, a spot where it exists.
Yeah,
I don't know where we would want one of those.
Sounds like we heard that topic this evening.
Huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else we want to discuss on this one?
And the other one I have, Chris, is Dodge.
Oh, sorry. I don't know. God, do we have Dodge in night? I don't think we have Dodge.
Oh, I saw it on the agenda.
It's on the
that's what-
agenda. 468, 496 Dodge Road, proposed multifamily development.
Oh, revised plan.
Yeah.
Right.
He and Phil Scott of the
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Farmer.